Chapter 9-10. In the blink of an eye, the day of the ninja school's graduation exam has arrived. In the Hyuga clan's land, after checking the various ninja tools on his body for the last time, Ningxi took a deep breath and strode out of his room. Today's graduation exam is very important for him, because Naruto will personally award the My Protector to the students who pass the exam, and as the disciple of Naruto, he must pass the exam with excellent results. Only in this way can he live up to his identity as the disciple of Naruto. Walking to the courtyard, Ningxi found his father Richa standing at the entrance of the courtyard, and quickly stepped forward and saluted, "Father." Richa looked at Ningxi from head to toe, and seeing that Ningxi was in high spirits, he nodded with satisfaction and said with a smile, "How is the preparation?" Ningxi replied, "Please rest assured, I will not embarrass you and Sensei in today's exam." Richa pondered for a moment and said, "Ningxi, don't blame your Sensei. I have already told you about the situation of Naruto. Protecting Naruto is your Sensei's responsibility as Naruto. You have to learn to understand." Ningxi shook his head. "Father, I don't blame Sensei. In the past few months, Hyojin has been carefully guiding Naruto, which indeed made him a little uncomfortable, but he already knows the special identity of Naruto's Jinchuriki, and he also knows that Naruto is an important target of the Akatsuki, so he doesn't blame Hyojin in his heart. If he has to say something, it's just that he is a little jealous of Naruto." Richa saw through Ningxi's careful thoughts at a glance, and sighed lightly. "Well, it's been a troubled time recently. The matter of Akatsuki, Aoki's betrayal, the matter of the Hyuga clan, all these things are on the shoulders of your sensei. The pressure your sensei is carrying is not something we can understand. The matter of Hyuga Aoki is still fermenting in the Hyuga clan. In order to cover up, the Hyuga clan announced the death of the Hyuga elder due to illness a few months ago, and skipped the link of visiting the body, quickly disposed of the body of the elder, and ended the funeral hastily. This may be able to hide from others, but not from Hisashi, who fought with Hyuga Aoki that night. Because Hisashi knew very well that Hyuga Aoki was heading towards the Hyuga clan that night, so most of the elders did not die of illness, but were killed by Hyuga Aoki. If this news were to be verified, it would mean that the Zone clan's several hundred years of absolute rule over the Branch clan would be in imminent danger. This is definitely an earth-shaking event for the Hyuga clan, so during this period of time, Richa has been in an inexplicable dilemma. He hopes to get rid of the shackles of the caged bird, but he also doesn't want his clan to suffer misfortune in the turmoil. At this time, Ningxi bowed deeply to Richa and said, "Please rest assured, I only have gratitude towards teacher. I have no complaints. Today, I will use my strength to prove myself to everyone and win back teacher's attention." Uchiha Clan Grounds. Sasuke also woke up early today. He told Kakashi that he didn't care about the graduation exam, but deep down he still cared about it. Arriving outside his brother Itachi's room, Sasuke hesitated for a moment and then knocked on the door. "Brother, are you up?" Itachi opened the door and smiled. "So early?" Sasuke turned his head to the side and asked casually, "Brother, does father have any arrangements today?" Itachi guessed Sasuke's thoughts and said, "Father mentioned it to me yesterday. He said that he would go to the ninja school with mother today to watch your graduation exam." Sasuke's face flashed with a hint of disbelief. He immediately suppressed the joy in his heart and asked with a taut face, "Really, really?" Looking at Sasuke, whose eyes seemed to be shining, Itachi nodded gently. "Well, you have to do well today, and I will always pay attention to you." Sasuke nodded heavily. "Brother, I will be like you, easily get the first place in the same period." In the ninja school, because of the graduation exam, although it was still early in the morning, the playground was already very lively. The students gathered in groups of 2s and 3s. Their faces were either excited, anxious, nervous, or distressed. There were all kinds of expressions on their faces, and there was not a single one of them. On both sides of the playground, a stand was set up. On one side was the rostrum, where the high-level members of the village and the teachers of the ninja school were seated, and on the other side was the temporary stand, which was responsible for receiving the families of the students who were watching the graduation exam. The reason why it was so grand is that the students who graduated this year are very special. Among them, there were not only the Kyubi's Jinchuriki and the seven-tailed Jinchuriki of the Takunin village, but also the geniuses of the Uchiha clan and the Hyuga clan, as well as Ino Shikacho clan and the current Miko-sama of the Land of Demons, and so on. It can be said that this graduating class is the most special class since the establishment of the ninja school. Therefore, not only all the high-level members of the village, including Hyojin, but also the families of many students arrived at the ninja school early, ready to watch the upcoming graduation exam. And to everyone's surprise, the former patriarch of the Uchiha clan, also appeared accompanied by his wife. On the rostrum, Tsunade looked at Fuyue, who had lost his eyes in the temporary stand opposite, and frowned. Why is he here? The three generations on the side also showed puzzlement. Since the storm of that night, Fuyue, the former patriarch of the Uchiha clan, has been living in seclusion. After all, with his arrogant personality and the shame of having his Manjikyu Sharingan taken away, he must be ashamed to see others. Therefore, it is reasonable to say that he should not attend a public occasion like today. In the playground, Sasuke, who has excellent insight, quickly noticed that the people around him were pointing and whispering about Fuyue, who had lost his eyes in the temporary stand. This made him feel very annoyed and touched. He believed that his parents had already expected this situation when they decided to attend his graduation exam, but his parents still came resolutely, so he made up his mind to repay his parents with the best results of his cohort. In the temporary stand, although he has lost his eyes, as a Kage class expert who has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, Fuyue is not like an ordinary blind person who knows nothing about the outside world. Therefore, he is well aware of the pointing and whispering around him, but he doesn't care. There's only one thing he cares about now, and that is to stimulate Sasuke to awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan. Slightly perceiving the situation in the playground, Fuyue found his target. As expected of a nine-tails Jinchuriki, a very strong chakra. On the side, Mikoto Uchiha also looked at the target and said with a smile, "Well, Kushina-san is also a very good boy. Whether we can succeed or not this time depends on him." The second update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. In addition, thank you to the students who gave gifts yesterday. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 911. It didn't take long for Itachi to come to the temporary stands. Originally, as the vice principal of the ninja school, Itachi should sit on the opposite podium, but since Fuyue and Mikoto are present, he naturally has to accompany them as their son. After sitting next to his parents, Itachi said, "Sasuke is in a good state today." Fuyue asked, "Is everything ready?" "Yes." Itachi nodded slightly and said, "Naruto-sama has been training Naruto personally during this time, so there should be no problem." Mikoto was a little worried. "I heard that Sasuke has also made great progress during this time. Will Naruto be the key person?" There is no doubt that the attendance of Fuyue and Mikoto this time was arranged by Hyojin. After figuring out the most effective way to stimulate Sasuke's emotions, Hyojin designed a series of stimulation plans, and today's ninja school graduation exam is a key stimulation plan. Just imagine, Fuyue, who has lost his eyes, resolutely came to the ninja school to support Sasuke under the public's comments and even ridicule. This is a great encouragement for Sasuke. If he fails in front of his father's concern, Sasuke will inevitably bear great guilt. And this sense of guilt towards his father and the family's reputation will undoubtedly greatly stimulate his special emotions of protecting his family and loved ones. Today, Sasuke already has the 3 Tomo Sharingan, and there is no obstacle in awakening Manjikyu Sharingan. Therefore, as long as this kind of stimulation is enough, coupled with a key person that is enough to touch Sasuke's heartstrings, then it is possible for Sasuke to awaken Manjikyu Sharingan. One must know that both Jishue and Itachi awakened Manjikyu Sharingan at the age of 11 or 12, so age is not an obstacle for Sasuke. Listening to his mother's question, Itachi also moved his gaze to the yellow-haired Naruto in the field. For some reason, Itachi always feels that Naruto is a very special child. This special does not refer to Naruto's Jinchuriki identity, but he feels that there is something about Naruto that he can't see through. After a while, Itachi said gently, "Mother, don't worry. Senpai has never made a mistake." Although Itachi doesn't know why Suijin chose Naruto as the key person to stimulate Sasuke, but he firmly believes that Suijin's decision will never be wrong. At the rostrum, when Kakashi saw Sasuke's eager face on the field, a look of suspicion appeared on his face. His gaze unconsciously drifted to Uchiha Fuyue in the temporary stands opposite him. Why is Sasuke suddenly so concerned about the graduation exam? Is it because his father is there? In the entire village, the only people who could accept the Uchiha clan without any grudge were Hyojin and Kakashi. In other words, Kakashi was the one who had the least prejudice against the Uchiha clan among all the village leaders. In this regard, he might have surpassed Hyojin. During the time he spent with Sasuke, he knew that Sasuke might look cold on the surface, but deep down, he was still a kind and even somewhat weak child. At the same time, Kakashi was also keenly aware that Sasuke was very eager to be recognized by his family. A word of praise from his brother Itachi Uchiha or his father Uchiha Fuyue can make him happy for several days, and the disappointment of his brother and father can also make him depressed for several days. Gradually, Kakashi's doubts became bigger and bigger. Strange, Uchiha should know Sasuke. Why does he give Sasuke such pressure? At this time, as Naruto and the headmaster of the school, Hyojin slowly ascended the rostrum. Unlike the almost playful graduation exam in the original story, due to the turmoil in the shinobi world and the reform of the headmaster Hyojin, the teaching of this year's ninja school is very strict, even more so than the third shinobi war Hyojin. Therefore, the content of the graduation exam is not a simple test of taijutsu and sanjutsu, but real combat. Standing on the rostrum, Hyojin glanced at the students on the field and announced, "Today's graduation exam is actual combat. In addition to giant summoning beasts, ninjutsu, taijutsu, genjutsu, ninja tools, small and medium summoning beasts, and so on are all within the scope of use." Before Hyojin's voice fell, the field was noisy. Although many students have guessed that the graduation exam will not be easy, but after hearing Hyojin announce the rules of the exam, many students still complained. How many monsters are hidden in this year's batch? The students are very clear. Not to mention ordinary civilian students. Even the young masters of small and medium shinobi clans like Shikamaru and you are very nervous. Hyojin grinned and continued to announce, "In order to be close to actual combat, accidental injuries are allowed in this exam. Everyone must sign a life and death agreement before participating in the exam." After saying that, Hyojin winked at Irika and the other ninja school instructors on the side. Irika and the other instructors immediately came to the field with the life and death agreement and asked the students to come forward one by one, sign their names, and press their fingerprints. Ninja is originally a profession that lives on the edge of a knife. Once they graduate from the ninja school, all the students will officially become the village's genin, carrying out all kinds of life-threatening tasks. Therefore, whether it is the senior members on the rostrum or the families of the students in the stands, none of them raised any objections to the signing of the life and death agreement. At this time, Hyojin emphasized, "Everyone remember, if you seriously injure the opponent, the winner's rating will also be lowered." Sasuke and Ningxi on the field heard this and looked at each other. Both of them understood the meaning of Hyojin's words. That is, it is not enough to just defeat the opponent. To get a high rating, not only must you defeat the opponent, but you must also not injure the opponent's life. Simply put, it is to win with the lowest intensity in order to get a high rating. After announcing the rules and waiting for all the students to sign the life and death agreement, Hyojin did not delay and immediately announced the official start of the graduation exam. Soon, the matches began on the field under the attention of the village's senior officials and the students' families. The quality of the matches exceeded everyone's expectations. It can be said that every student on the field has a performance beyond ordinary Genin, and some of the best can completely reach the level of Chunin. After a few matches, Hyojin announced, the next match, Hyuga Ningxi against Uzumaki Naruto. Ningxi on the side of the field was startled for a moment, and then his face sank and he strode to the field. Naruto laughed and said, "Haha, it's finally my turn to play." Sasuke on the side curled his lips and said, "Idiot, don't lose too badly." Naruto said confidently, "Don't worry, this time the first place belongs to me. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes." Chapter 9:12. In the middle of the field, Ningxi and Naruto stood looking at each other, and their hands formed the seal of opposition at the same time. Ningxi's eyes gradually focused, and he said slowly, "Naruto, I'm really sorry, but I have to win this competition, so I won't show mercy to you." Naruto also put away his smile and responded seriously, "Bring it on. Naruto, you have to be careful." After exhaling, Ningxi opened the Byakugan and rushed to Naruto. Seeing Ningxi rushing over, Naruto immediately began to skillfully form the seal in a temporary stance. Looking at the seal formed by Naruto's hands, Rich's face turned cold. Naruto is going to use the multiple shadows technique? Kuroto taught him this forbidden technique? Hyojin's special training for Naruto was a secret of the village. Except for the advisory elder group and people who were very close to Hyojin like Bell. Other people, including Richa, only knew that Hyojin had been training Naruto in the past few months, but they did not know the specific content of the special training. Therefore, when Naruto was going to use the multiple shadows technique, a forbidden technique that was extremely difficult for a Jonin to bear, Richa was quite surprised. Like Richa, all the families of the students who recognized the seal formed by Naruto in the temporary stands exclaimed. The reason why the multiple shadows technique was listed as a forbidden technique was not how difficult it was to practice, but the hidden dangers of this technique were so great that even a Jonin would not dare to use it easily. Therefore, there were many people present who knew about this technique, but not many had used it. Bam, bam, bam. In an instant, Naruto skillfully completed the multiple shadow clone technique. As the white smoke surged, one after another identical Naruto came out of the smoke and charged towards Ningxi. Shadow doppelganger? Ningxi's expression did not change as he watched Naruto emerge from the smoke. Even if he was surrounded and attacked by Naruto's doppelgangers, he wasn't worried at all. He had absolute confidence in his own physical skills and insight. Even if it was 1 against 5, 1 against 10, he wouldn't be afraid. Bam, bam, bam. However, the smoke from the explosion did not stop as he expected. Instead, it continued. In the blink of an eye, Naruto turned from 1 to 5, then to 10, and then to 100. In an instant, he had covered half of the field. Ningxi's body froze, and his brows furrowed tightly. So many, are they all shadow clones? How is this possible? With the Byakugan, Ningxi could tell with a glance that all the hundreds of Naruto in the field had a physical body. They were shadow clones with chakra flowing, and not clones that were used as a distraction. He's coming. At this moment, all the Narutos around shouted in unison. Amidst the layers of shouting, hundreds of Narutos charged towards Ningxi from all directions. Looking at the scene in the field, whether it was the ninja school instructors on the rostrum or the families of the students in the temporary spectator stand, all of them were dumbfounded. So many shadow clones. How did that kid Naruto do it? Hey, this is too much. This level of battle is just a normal graduation exam? In an instant, there was a commotion in and out of the field, and there was a lot of discussion on and off the stage. The students who were watching the battle on the sidelines had different expressions at this moment. For example, the students who were familiar with Naruto, such as Shikamaru, Dinsi, and Ya, were all in disbelief after seeing Naruto's performance in the field. For example, Zen, Sakura, Ino, and Tian looked nervous and expectant at the same time. And Hinata clenched her hands tightly. She hoped that her brother Ningxi could win, and, at the same time, she hoped that Naruto could win. For a moment, her face was full of confusion and worry. Only Sasuke's expression didn't change, but his scarlet 3 Magatama Sharingan showed that he wasn't calm at all. Without a doubt, Naruto's performance was also beyond his expectations, and he subconsciously opened his Sharingan to observe the battle on the field while thinking of a way to break Naruto's multiple shadow clone technique. In the field, bang, 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 with every low muffled sound, there would be a shadow clone of Naruto turning into white smoke. Ningxi, who was besieged, didn't panic. He faced the enemy with the 64 palms of the 8 trigrams of the soft fist, shrinking the defensive circle to the smallest range of 1 or 2 meters around his body. His defense was stable, and any shadow clone of Naruto that invaded his defensive circle would be instantly defeated by his 64 palms of the 8 trigrams and dissipate like smoke. Hayashi, who was on the temporary stand, nodded and said to Richa beside him, "I didn't expect Ningxi to have mastered the 64 palms of the 8 trigrams at such a young age." Hizashi-sama smiled. Seeing that Ningxi was so stable in the field, he was already relieved. Even if Naruto had the strength of 9 tails, he couldn't exhaust Ningxi like this. After all, the consumption of shadow clones was far greater than the consumption of the soft fist. After defeating dozens of Naruto's shadow clones in a row, Ningxi panted lightly while looking for Naruto's real body in the field. Although he didn't lose out in such a battle of attrition, he had to conserve enough physical strength to deal with Sasuke. Therefore, he knew that he had to find out Naruto's real body immediately. It was just that things like shadow clones were very difficult to identify. Sasuke, who had rich combat experience in the original space-time and had a 6 Magatama reincarnation eye, was also being played around by Naruto's shadow clones, and it was difficult to identify them in an instant. Similarly, after realizing that the shadow clones alone couldn't do anything to Ningxi, Naruto also stopped the pointless consumption and shouted, "Ningxi, I'm going to get serious." Ningxi said in a deep voice, "Come on." Naruto didn't waste any more time and immediately began to condense Rasengan in pairs, and, in the blink of an eye, dozens of Rasengan lit up in the field. Ningxi was startled when he saw this. This situation was obviously beyond the scope for him. He didn't know what the chakra mass condensed in Naruto's palm was, but intuition told him that the small mass of chakra contained extremely powerful energy. On the rostrum, Kakashi also looked shocked and said to Hyojin next to him, "You taught Rasengan to Naruto?" Hyojin smiled and nodded. On the opposite temporary stance, feeling the violent chakra fluctuations in the field, who had lost his eyes, frowned. "This is," Makoto explained, "it's the Rasengan of 4 generations." Not only did Naruto learn Rasengan, but he also released dozens of them at once. Fuyue said with emotion, 5 generations is really not simple. In just a few months, he has trained Naruto to this point. The other spectators also expressed the same emotion as Fuyue. The appearance of dozens of Rasengan was even more shocking than the appearance of hundreds of shadow clones just now. Sasuke's expression also changed at this time, murmuring, "Naruto, this guy." The second update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts yesterday. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 9:13. On the field, one after another, shining Rasengan was lit up in the palm of Naruto's shadow clone. Looking around, Ningxi's Byakugan vision was filled with these extremely compressed, twisted, and rotating chakra orbs. These chakra orbs made him instinctively feel danger. What kind of ninjutsu is this? Ningxi's face became more and more dignified. The situation in front of him was far beyond his expectations. After completing the condensation of Rasengan, Naruto shouted, "Ningxi, you have to be careful. My Rasengan can even knock down a tree. Is this ninjutsu called Rasengan?" Ningxi's breathing became a little faster, and the chakra orbs on his body became a little chaotic. Under the heavy pressure, his shortcomings of inexperience gradually emerged. On the temporary stance, Richa stood up with a swish, looking at the field with a face full of disbelief. Naruto not only mastered Rasengan, an A-class ninjutsu developed by 4 generations Naruto, but he can also condense dozens of Rasengan at one time with the help of a number of shadow clones, which is simply incredible. Not to mention a Genin. Even a Chunin, or even the vast majority of Jonin can't do this. On the side, Hayashi also had a gloomy look on his face. Although Ningxi is a member of the branch family, he still represents the Hyuga clan, and he has the title of the genius of the Hyuga clan, so he naturally doesn't want Ningxi to lose to Naruto. But judging from the current situation, Ningxi's defeat is already certain. On the main stance, Tsunade turned sideways and said to Mute on the side, "Go, tell the medical team to be on standby." Mute immediately responded and hurried off the stage to make the necessary arrangements. On the other side, Kakashi stood up and focused his attention on the arena, ready to enter the arena to save his opponent. Although Naruto's understanding of Rasengan is still shallow, Rasengan is a ninjutsu developed by 4 generations imitating Jade-tailed Beast. It is the ultimate form of chakra, and its lower limit is much higher than ordinary ninjutsu. Even the Rasengan that Naruto is using at this time is far more powerful than ordinary ninjutsu, and a little carelessness can really cause death and injury. Thinking of this, Kakashi glanced at Hyojin beside him. However, he did not see any nervousness or worry on Hyojin's face. On the contrary, as the teacher of Ningxi and Naruto, Hyojin was unusually calm, as if he was an unconcerned bystander. In fact, Hyojin is indeed very calm. In the past few months, his guidance to Naruto, in addition to getting close to Naruto and improving Naruto's strength, is also to let Naruto stimulate Sasuke, through Naruto, the reincarnation of Azura, to stimulate Sasuke, the reincarnation of Indra, to awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan. The arrangement of Naruto and Ningxi is a test for Hyojin to Ningxi. For a ninja, the ability to resist pressure is also very important. Ninjas like Itachi and Kakashi have a strong ability to resist pressure. Even if they encounter a strong person whose strength is far beyond their own, they can calmly find a chance to win in a disadvantageous situation. Hyojin is full of expectations for Ningxi. He doesn't want Ningxi to be just a genius in cultivation. He hopes that Ningxi will become a tactical genius like Itachi. And in the current situation, Ningxi is not completely without a chance to win. Although Naruto has learned the multiple shadows technique and Rasengan, but like his strengths, he also has many shortcomings and flaws. As long as Ningxi can keep his heart, calmly find Naruto's flaws, and use them, it is not impossible to defeat Naruto. Rasengan continuous bullets. At this time, dozens of Naruto holding Rasengan in the field attacked Ningxi. Ningxi's eyes were scattered, and he panicked a little, and immediately shouted, 8 trigrams palm, revolving heaven. Swish, in an instant, Ningxi flew up with himself as the center and displayed the absolute defense of soft fist. Boom, boom, boom. One after another Rasengan hit Ningxi's revolving heaven, making a deafening roar, and the earth seemed to tremble. On the flat ground of the playground, cracks continued to spread, broken bricks splashed in all directions under the great force, and smoke and dust also rose. What the hell? Are these 2 kids still human? My graduation exam was not so terrifying. Are all graduates nowadays monsters? On both sides of the stands, whether it is the high level of the village, the teachers of the ninja school, or the families of the students watching on the sidelines, they all looked stunned and shocked at the moment. Even if it is a Chunin, it is difficult to make such a movement without the detonator, let alone 2 little kids who have not yet graduated from the ninja school. On the sidelines, Hinata's immature face was pale. She had already activated the Byakugan, and she was watching Ningxi and Naruto in the smoke and dust in a panic. The movement just now was too exaggerated, and she was very worried that Ningxi and Naruto would be injured. The other students were also talking about it, and no one expected that Naruto would force Ningxi, one of the Gemini stars of this year, into a desperate situation without entering the sage mode. Sasuke, who was named the other of this year's Gemini stars, the 3 Tomo on his Sharingan were slowly spinning. I can't resist it. Looking at the broken ground and the flying smoke and dust, Sasuke suddenly had a realization in his heart. Although he was not sure how much the cost of Ningxi resisting Naruto's Rasengan barrage was, but judging from the extent of the destruction of the playground, he knew that it was impossible to resist this kind of attack from Naruto. Richa in the temporary stands was slightly relieved, but his face was still solemn. Hayashi stood up inadvertently and said in surprise, "When did Ningxi learn Revolving Heaven? This kind of secret skill is not something he can master at his age, right?" Richa was not too proud and replied, "It has been a while since I learned Revolving Heaven." On the rostrum, seeing that Ningxi actually blocked Naruto's Rasengan barrage, the advisory elder group was quite surprised. Kakashi glanced sideways at Hyojin and said, "No wonder you are not worried at all." Hyojin shook his head and said nothing, but there was a slight disappointment in his eyes. When Ningxi was forced to use Revolving Heaven to resist Naruto's Rasengan barrage, Ningxi had already lost. Because of such consumption, Ningxi could only support one more time at most, but Naruto could hold on for a whole day. On the field, Ningxi, who was panting heavily, his chest was heaving violently like a bellows. As Hyojin expected, in order to block Naruto's Rasengan barrage, he consumed nearly 70% of his chakra. If this happened again, he would completely lose his combat effectiveness. At this time, Ningxi, who was panting like an ox, glanced sideways at Hyojin on the rostrum, looked at Hyojin's calm eyes, and said to himself, "No, I must not lose. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes." Chapter 9:14. Just as Ningxi looked at Hyojin on the rostrum, dozens of Naruto on the field also looked at the rostrum, looking at Hyojin sitting there. Just like Ningxi, Naruto also had a reason not to lose. Naruto's disciple should get the title of first in the same batch. This very simple thought filled the hearts of Ningxi and Naruto, making them concentrate and enter a kind of unprecedented concentration, as if everything around them had disappeared, and there was only the opponent in front of them in their eyes. Hyojin let out a soft sound. At this moment, he found that the aura of Ningxi and Naruto had changed. These two kids seemed to have lost the impetuous and inexperienced students at the same time, and began to learn to fight like real ninjas. Obviously, Hyojin was not the only one who noticed this change. The 3 generations with the pipe in their mouths smiled with relief. Jiraiya on the side sighed and said, "For a short moment, I saw the shadow of Minato on Naruto." Tsunade said, "It seems that Naruto's potential is greater than we thought." In the field, knowing that he would lose if he continued to passively defend, Ningxi decisively gave up the tactic of drawing the ground to defend himself. His figure swayed, and he launched an active attack on Naruto, who was all over the field. Bang, bang, bang. Under Ningxi's skillful soft fist, Naruto's shadow doppelgangers were constantly broken. For a time, the whole field was muffled, and white smoke was bursting. And during the tossing and turning, Ningxi did not forget his goal. He used the gap between the attacks to activate the Byakugan with all his strength, trying to find the real body of Naruto among the dozens of Naruto's shadow doppelgangers. In the face of Ningxi's sharp physical skills, Naruto did not sit still and wait for death. He mixed his main body with the many shadow clones, and then paired them up to recondense the Rasengan. Facing the Rasengan again, Ningxi was much calmer than before. This time, he did not choose to fight head-on. Instead, he used the inside of his Byakugan, the sharpness of his soft fists, and the speed of his body to engage in a guerrilla battle with Naruto. Boom! Boom! Naruto's attacks again and again were all narrowly avoided by Ningxi, and Naruto's Rasengan hit the ground, and suddenly a big pit burst out on the ground, making a burst of roars. In the blink of an eye, the field was full of potholes, gravel flew, and smoke and dust rose. On the temporary stands, Richa stared intently at the field, his hands clenched tightly, and his heart was hanging in his throat. At this moment, Ningxi obviously found the right way to deal with Naruto, but just now he used Revolving Heaven to resist Naruto's Rasengan bullets, which was really too much of a loss. Not only was he slightly injured, but his chakra was also seriously damaged. So much so that at this moment, the movement of his soft fist was a little distorted, and his speed was a lot slower, and he was almost hit by Naruto's Rasengan several times. It can be said that at the moment, both sides have a chance of winning, but who can win depends on who has better toughness and perseverance. At the other end of the stands, Itachi, who was sitting upright, looked at the battle in the field with a little regret on his face. When instructing Ningxi, he found a weakness of Ningxi, or rather, a bad habit of Ningxi. That is, Ningxi has an almost blind confidence in the soft fists of the Hyuga clan. As a result, when Ningji faced his enemies, the tactics he used would habitually accommodate his soft fists, and he would be bound by the soft fist routine. Just like just now, because of his blind confidence in the defensive ability of soft fists, when he was besieged by Naruto's shadow clones, he did not prioritize thinking about how to get out of the disadvantageous situation, but habitually followed the characteristics of soft fists, letting himself be besieged, hoping to find the enemy's flaws in his defense. As a result, he was caught off guard by Naruto's Rasengan bullets, which consumed more than half of his chakra in vain, and also caused him to suffer minor injuries, causing his physical function to decline significantly. Such a mistake is undoubtedly fatal in actual combat. Itachi doesn't know who instilled this concept of soft fist supremacy into Ningxi, but it can't be Hyojin, who rarely uses soft fists. As the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, it is not convenient for him to comment too bluntly on the shortcomings of soft fists of the Hyuga clan, so he only tactfully reminded Ningxi a few times, but the effect was not ideal. And today, Ningxi paid the price for his bad habit. In the eyes of most people, the battle on the field may still be in a stalemate, but in Itachi's eyes, the outcome of this battle has already been decided. Not only did Ningxi's chakra consume a lot of energy, but he also didn't quickly find a way to find Naruto's real body from the many shadow doppelgangers. On the other hand, Naruto seemed to have just finished warming up, and he didn't look tired for the time being. And every time Ningxi finally solved Naruto's shadow doppelgangers, Naruto would use multiple shadow doppelganger technique again, and then his real body would continue to blend into the shadow doppelgangers. Therefore, the number of Naruto's shadow doppelgangers in the field did not continue to decrease because of Ningxi's offensive, but maintained a large number of dozens. If Ningxi hadn't been exhausted and injured before, the outcome of the battle would still be uncertain, but with the previous mistake, Ningxi's defeat was only a matter of time. Boom! Boom! Naruto's Rasengan offensive continued. One after another Rasengan brushed past Ningxi, and then smashed on the ground, making a loud noise. Suddenly, a crushed stone the size of a thumb flew towards Ningxi. With Byakugan's insight, such a flying stone shouldn't be able to hurt him. It's just that Naruto's attacks were too fierce, and his status was declining. So this broken flying stone became the last straw that broke the camel's back. Pa! The flying stone hit Ningxi's cheek, distracting him for a while, and at this time, Naruto's new wave of offensive was in front of him. It's too late to dodge. Shocked, Ningxi had to use Revolving Heaven again. Boom! Naruto's Rasengan and Ningxi's Revolving Heaven fought head-on for the second time today. With a loud roar, both figures were sent flying. Bang! Naruto's shadow clone turned into white smoke. Ningxi, who was also sent flying, couldn't get up because the second Revolving Heaven had consumed all of his chakra, leaving him sore and weak. At this time, Hyojin stood up and announced, "The winner of this match is Naruto." With Hyojin's announcement, the medical class that had been on standby immediately entered the field and brought Ningxi to the side of the field to start treatment. Sasuke, who was also at the side of the field, looked at the potholes all over the field and fell in a deep thought. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave me gifts yesterday. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 9:15. After the battle between Ningxi and Naruto ended, the school slightly leveled the field, and then began the next match. The next few matches were also very exciting. The performance of the students all exceeded the level of ordinary genin. But because the previous battle between Ningxi and Naruto was too intense, the audience seemed to be still immersed in that battle, so the response to the subsequent matches was mediocre. It was not until the match between Shikamaru and Sakai began that everyone's mood was aroused again. Shikamaru is the brain of the new generation of Inashikedo. Not only the Nara clan, but even the Yamanaka clan and the Akimichi clan have high hopes for him. He is recognized as a genius by the three clans, and he is also the pillar of the three clans to maintain the status of the three clans in the village in the future. He is the focus of the three clans. Because of Hyojin's reform of the shinobi school and the tense situation in the shinobi world, the training of Shikamaru by the three clans is more rigorous than in the original story, which also makes Shikamaru's potential to be excavated earlier than in the original story. Sakai was born in the root. After Danzo became the acting Naruto, he was sent to the ninja school by Danzo to be responsible for monitoring the two Jinchuriki, Naruto and Fu, as well as Uchiha Sasuke. With the defection of Danzo and the disbandment of the root, the three generations felt that Sakai's aptitude in all aspects is very good. So they removed the curse for Sakai and changed his identity to an ordinary ninja. One is the genius of the three clans of Inashikedo. The other was the leader of the root. The match has not yet begun, but the audience has already aroused a strong interest. And after the match began, the special fighting methods of the two sides aroused the curiosity of many people. Both of them were using secret techniques. Shikamaru was using the shadow secret technique passed down from the ancestors of the Nara clan. He could use inconspicuous shadows to confine the enemy, control the enemy, or even directly attack the enemy. What Sai used was a secret technique called forged super beast painting that he collected from his roots. It allowed him to draw on a special scroll to create a special summoned creature that was made of ink paintings. It was worth mentioning that Sakai was one of the few ninjas in the village who had the ability to fly, which was one of the reasons why the three generations valued him. Therefore, the match between Shikamaru and Zue was completely different from the match between Ningxi and Naruto. If the battle between Ningxi and Naruto was a head-on battle, a battle between taijutsu and ninjutsu, then the battle between Shikamaru and Sai was a battle between secret techniques, a battle between wisdom and tactics. Although the movement of this battle was not as big as the one between Ningxi and Naruto, the scope of the battle was larger and more three-dimensional. The battle on the ground gradually evolved into a battle between the ground and the air. Sai used his advantage of flying to launch a fierce attack on Shikamaru in the air. Similarly, because of flying in the air, Sai's shadow on the ground was larger and more conspicuous. Therefore, although Shikamaru did not have any means to fight against the air, it was not that he did not have the power to fight back against Sai in the air. After a battle, Shikamaru finally won. He used himself as bait to lure Sai into a trap and barely won the match. On the side of the field, listening to the applause of the crowd for Shikamaru, Sasuke looked serious. There was no doubt that the performance of Shikamaru and Sai had also attracted his attention. He originally thought that he only needed to pay extra attention to Naruto and Ningxi in the same batch. He did not expect that Shikamaru, who was usually free and undisciplined, and Sai, who was taciturn, would also have extraordinary strength. After the applause stopped, Hyojin stood up and announced, "Next match, Uchiha Sasuke versus Lilac. Finally, it's my turn." Sasuke's spirit was lifted when he heard that, and he strode to the field. Kuroto, who has watched several matches from the sidelines, has long been ready to go, and he can't wait to show everyone the strength of the Uchiha clan. On the other side, Guy patted Xiaoli's shoulder. "Let's fight." Xiaoli was touched. "Sensei." "Xiaoli." "Sensei." "Xiaoli." "Sensei." Mutadine could not bear to watch any longer and urged, "Hurry up and go on stage. Everyone's waiting." Under Mute's urging, Xiaoli looked at Sasuke in the field and could not help but ask Guy, "Sensei, can I really defeat Sasuke?" Guy gave Xiaoli a thumbs up without hesitation. "You can do it. You are my disciple." "Yes." Xiaoli, who was a little nervous before, was immediately full of confidence after seeing Guy's smiling face. Guy laughed. "Don't worry too much. Just enjoy the battle." Xiaoli did not hesitate anymore and jumped to the center of the field. At this time, Guy murmured, "Konoha's dark blue beast will bloom again today." On the main stand, when it was Sasuke's turn, Kakashi became lazy. No one knew Sasuke's progress better than him. So other than Naruto and Ningxi, who had a certain chance of defeating Sasuke, the other students in the same batch should not have a chance of defeating Sasuke. When Xiaoli came to the field, his face sank, and he wondered, why does Xiaoli look a little strange today? Obviously, Kakashi noticed that Xiaoli's movement was much more agile than before. No, it should be said that she was a completely different person. Hyojin said lightly, "Oh, she did not bring any weights today." Kakashi raised his eyebrows. "You didn't bring any weights?" Because of his busy work and the need to carefully guide Sasuke, Kakashi did not know much about ordinary students like Xiaoli. He only knew that Xiaoli was chosen by Guy and accepted as a disciple. Therefore, he didn't know how much the weight Kuroto mentioned would affect Xiaoli's speed, and he still had some doubts in his heart. He didn't understand why Kuroto emphasized such a trivial matter as not carrying any weight. On the temporary stand, Fuyue asked, "Who is the opponent?" Mikoto shook her head. "I am not very familiar. I don't think I have heard of him." At this time, Itachi explained to his parents, "The opponent against Sasuke is a child named Lilac." Fuyue asked casually, "Is he strong?" Itachi thought about it seriously and replied, "It's hard to judge. This child is not good at ninjutsu, illusion, and has not even mastered the most basic three-body technique. But he has a tenacity and is very talented in physical skills." Fuyue's face showed the usual banter of the Uchiha clan, only physical skills for the Uchiha clan who had Sharingan, excellent dynamic capture ability, and specialized in illusion. A pure physical skill ninja was a dead fish on the chopping board, and they could deal with it as they pleased. Itachi opened his mouth, but in the end, he chose to remain silent. On the field, Sasuke, who deliberately turned off his Sharingan before going on the field, said to Xiaoli, "Hurry up, today's time is very tight." The first update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 9:16. Looking at Sasuke's relaxed face, Xiaoli said seriously, "Sasuke, please recognize Shinichi, because I will do my best in this battle." Sasuke raised his eyebrows and said, "Don't talk nonsense. Let's start." Xiaoli didn't say anything else and put on an iron fist-style stance. At this moment, his entire aura changed dramatically. Sasuke didn't take it easy. He immediately lowered his center of gravity and put one of his hands into the ninja bag on his waist. Xiaoli had never been on his list of focus, so he didn't want to waste too much time on Xiaoli. He wanted to finish the battle quickly and leave Chakra to deal with Naruto. Swish! Just when Sasuke was thinking about how to finish the battle quickly, Xiaoli's figure flashed and suddenly disappeared from Sasuke's sight. Sasuke was surprised and subconsciously opened his Sharingan. When the black pupils in his eye sockets turned into scarlet-red Sharingan, he finally saw Xiaoli's figure clearly. It was dragging a long afterimage as it rushed toward him from the side. Mai's whirlwind. While shouting, Xiaoli launched the first round of attack. So fast, suppressing the surprise in his heart, Sasuke immediately raised his arms in front of his body to protect himself. Bang! Xiaoli's flying kick landed on Sasuke's arm and sent Sasuke flying. While flying in the air, Sasuke quickly adjusted his body and landed steadily on the ground. The relaxed expression on his face was replaced by surprise and seriousness. The three Sharingan on his Sharingan also slowly rotated. On the main stand, Kakashi was shocked. How can Xiaoli have this kind of speed? In terms of speed alone, the degree that Xiaoli showed has surpassed most of the Chunin ninjas. Even many Jonins are not a match for Xiaoli in terms of speed alone. Hyojin was also a little surprised. Of course, It was not Xiaoli's speed that surprised him. Xiaoli was chosen by Guy earlier than in the original time and space, and under the influence of Hyojin, Guy's potential was also more thorough than in the original time and space. So after removing the weight, Xiaoli's speed was expected by Hyojin. What really surprised him was Sasuke's adaptability. Seeing that Sasuke didn't activate his Sharingan as soon as he entered the field, Suijin thought that Sasuke would have to take a hard hit before he would learn to activate his Sharingan. But he didn't expect that under the training of Kakashi, Sasuke's adaptability improved so much. When he noticed that something was wrong, he didn't even bother to act cool. Not only did he instantly open his Sharingan and capture Xiaoli's attack, but the follow-up response was also impeccable, showing a strong responsibility. Guy on the side of the arena frowned and thought, such an attack didn't succeed. He is indeed a genius of Uchiha. I hope Xiaoli won't use that move. With that, Guy turned his head and looked at Hyojin on the rostrum. He didn't understand why Hyojin insisted on asking Xiaoli to use all her strength to fight against Sasuke in this ordinary graduation exam. But since it was Hyojin's order, he can only execute it. In the arena, Sasuke shook his arms that just blocked Xiaoli's my whirlwind to dispel the numbness, and said coldly, "Last place, it seems that you're not as useless as I thought, but that was the only chance you had to hit me." Xiaoli put on the stance of iron fist style again. "Sasuke, you are finally serious." "Humph." With a light snort, Sasuke grinned. "You seem to be very confident in your speed, then let me defeat you in an instant. I want you to understand that the speed that you are so proud of is not even worth mentioning in front of my Sharingan." Swish, with that, Sasuke's body swayed and disappeared on the spot like Xiaoli before. In an instant, two unbelievably fast afterimages were fighting on the field. From time to time came the sound of hitting and the sound of wind breaking. On the rostrum, this is Hyojin's eyes turned cold. The technique that Sasuke used could fool others, but not him, who has the Tenseigan. With just a glance, he found out that Sasuke stimulated the lightning release chakra in his body to stimulate the cells, greatly improving the body's function in a short period of time. Almost all the elite ninjas who were good at lightning release knew this technique. This was because under the strong stimulation of the lightning release chakra, the cell activity would greatly improve in a short period of time, and at the same time, it would bring speed and strength that far exceeded the normal. And Hyojin, who had been developing the lightning release clone body recently, had a deep understanding of this technique. According to Hyojin's speculation, this method of using the lightning release chakra to stimulate the body is very likely to be the primary form of the Cloud's secret technique, lightning release chakra mode. In other words, if he wants to develop the lightning release chakra mode like the 4 generations Liang, he must first master this method of stimulation and let the body completely adapt to this method of stimulation, so that his cells can completely accept the violent and disorderly lightning release chakra, and then let the lightning release chakra completely cover the whole body. In this regard, the violent lightning release chakra is much more troublesome than the gentle Tenseigan chakra. When using the Yin release body, even if Hyojin didn't know the technique of the Tenseigan chakra mode, he can still clumsily cover the whole body with the Tenseigan chakra, because the Tenseigan chakra is gentle and stable enough to not cause any harm to the body. But when using the lightning release clone body, Hyojin can only try a little bit carefully, because if he is not careful, the violent lightning release chakra may hurt the body's cells and meridians. Therefore, in Hyojin's daily development of the lightning release clone body, practicing this stimulation method is one of the most important subjects. On the sidelines, so fast my eyes can't keep up with the two of them. When did Xiaoli become so powerful? Could it be that Sasuke is also going to lose? I don't think so. It can't be that both Ningxi and Sasuke will be defeated, right? They're the twin stars of our batch. It's already surprising enough that Ningxi was defeated by Naruto. If Sasuke is defeated by Xiaoli as well, then it'll be. Looking at the two people in the field who moved like ghosts, the students exclaimed and discussed among themselves. Naruto, who had just won, was also astonished at this moment. How did they do it so fast? Ningxi, who was defeated by Naruto and lying on a medical bed, was even more shocked. At this moment, he realized that not only Naruto improved rapidly, but even Xiaoli, who he usually didn't care about, had also changed. Why is this happening? Why did everyone become so powerful? In an instant, cracks appeared on Ningxi's sense of superiority as Naruto's disciple, the ninja with the pupil technique Kekkei Genkai and the descendant of a rich family. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes to support me. Also, I would like to thank the students who tipped me yesterday. Chapter 9:17. In the field. Although Sasuke used the thunder release stimulation method, his speed and strength have greatly increased, and he also has the help of the Sharingan's dynamic vision, but he is obviously not used to this kind of physical confrontation at extreme speed. His attacks are sloppy, and his judgment is hesitant. On the contrary, although Xiaoli doesn't have the help of Sharingan, but he has been training with Sensei Guy for a long time, so his body has long been accustomed to this kind of speed confrontation. Even if his eyes can't capture all of Sasuke's movements, he can accurately respond to Sasuke's seemingly fierce attacks with his own intuition and body's instincts. Therefore, the two sides are evenly matched for a while. After a while, Sasuke had to stop his offensive and gasped for breath. Although the thunder release stimulation method is easy to use, it is difficult to maintain for a long time. In such a short time, Sasuke's body obviously can't bear it, and his legs even began to tremble faintly. This is why even though many thunder release ninjas know this stimulation method, but only Cloud Village has figured out the advanced version of thunder release chakra mode. And even in Kimo, only the Reikage who has mastered the secret technique of lightning release chakra mode is able to do so because of his superior physical fitness compared to ordinary people. It's not that other people are stupid, but their bodies can't bear it. Humph! Glaring at Xiaoli, Sasuke spat lightly. Just now he said that he would quickly end the battle, but he broke his promise, which made him feel very embarrassed, especially in the case of his father, mother, and brother. Xiaoli, who was gasping lightly, sighed with emotion. As expected of Sasuke, I didn't expect him to have such a fast speed. You bastard! Xiaoli's honest sigh not only did not make Sasuke happy, but it made him even more annoyed. Because the speed just now was not his normal state, it was a temporary increase in speed using the thunder release stimulation method, and Xiaoli, who is fighting fiercely with him, is the real normal state. This also meant that in terms of speed, Xiaoli, who was at the bottom, had surpassed him, the genius of the Uchiha clan. With that thought in mind, Sasuke guiltily glanced at his family members on the temporary stand. His father, who had lost both his eyes, was listening attentively with his head tilted to the side. There was even a faint hint of anticipation on his face. His mother even cast a concerned look at him. Beside her, her brother was full of smiles. Father, mother, brother. With his family's attention, Sasuke no longer hesitated. He made up his mind and said coldly to Xiaoli, "Hey, this ridiculous farce ends here." Then, with a series of sizzling sounds, Sasuke's right hand flashed with a dazzling electric light. At this time, Sasuke slowly spat out 2 words, "1,000 birds." Before his voice died away, the electric light in Sasuke's right hand became more and more dazzling, and the sound it made became sharper and sharper, as if thousands of birds had gathered in the forest. Seeing this, Xiaoli was slightly stunned. He knew that Sasuke was serious, so he turned his head to look at Kai, who was on the side of the field, and cast a seeking look. Kai smiled and gave Xiaoli a thumbs up, shouting, "Break out, youth." Xiaoli, who was slightly panting, instantly calmed his breathing. With the sharp sound of the 1,000 birds in his ear, he whispered, 8 inner hidden gates. The first gate, open, open. Bang! A gust of air surged from Xiaoli's body. The second gate, rest gate, open. The airflow increased sharply once more, forming a cyclone visible to the naked eye beside Little Li. The third gate, life gate, open. When the third gate, life gate, opened, the huge cyclone formed waves of air, sweeping in all directions. Whether it was on the rostrum or the temporary stands, the audience were all shocked. Even though there were already ninjutsu and secret techniques like Reincarnated, multiple clones, 8 trigrams palm reversal, shadow imitation, forged super beast drawings, and other ninjutsu and secret techniques, but when everyone saw Chidori and Hashimoto Gate, they couldn't help but feel surprised. Kakashi, who had been sitting steadily, suddenly stood up at this time and blurted out, "Kai actually taught Xiaoli Hashimoto Gate." Kakashi was surprised not only because Kai taught Xiaoli Hashimoto Gate, but also because Xiaoli, who was famous for being the last in the ninja school, actually learned Hashimoto Gate. "This is incredible." Hyojin, who was still sitting, smiled and said, "I don't know how many gates Xiaoli can open." When Kakashi heard this, he immediately focused on Xiaoli. He was also full of curiosity. He wanted to know how many gates this kid, who liked to wear funny combat clothes like Kai, could open. On the other side of the temporary stands, listening to the family members of the students constantly mentioning that Xiaoli was the last in the ninja school, Fuyue was speechless. Is there such a last place? Hashimoto Gate is a secret technique that even a jonin would find difficult to master. Makoto on the side was also inexplicable. He was obviously just a very ordinary kid, but he suddenly used such a big move. It was too surprising. If Fuyue and Makoto were worried that Naruto would not be able to defeat Sasuke, but now their worries have disappeared because it is difficult to say whether Sasuke can defeat Xiaoli. Compared to the others, Itachi was much calmer. First, they were colleagues in the ninja school. He was very clear about Kai's strength, so he did not underestimate Kai's disciple from the beginning to the end. Second, in his eyes, Sasuke still has a great chance of winning. The students on the sidelines all exclaimed. Especially some of the girls who admired Sasuke. All of them were nervous, as if the people on the field were them. Naruto scratched his head. So thick eyebrows are also hiding a unique skill. Ningxi on the medical bed was pale, whether it was Sasuke's Chidori or Xiaoli's Hashimoto Gate. Both were far beyond his expectations. On the field, Xiaoli's eruption continued. The 4th gate, Gate of Pain, opened. The cyclone expanded rapidly, and the air wave lifted the gravel and sand on the field, like sand and dust, sweeping in all directions. Sasuke, who was in the field, was no longer as confident as before. He covered his cheek with one hand, blocking the sweeping sand and dust, and held Chidori in the other hand. The 3 Magatama in his Sharingan were also flying quickly. Isn't this the technique that Kakashi-sensei used when he was competing for the 5th Naruto? After a pause, Sasuke's mind was filled with a kind of absurd feeling, and he wondered, how could Xiaoli know this level of secret technique? This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. He really couldn't understand. Kakashi didn't even teach him this technique. How did Xiaoli learn it? The first update, it's almost Monday. All the rankings will be updated. Please recommend and support. It's nothing. Please. Chapter 918. Looking at Xiaoli surrounded by a powerful cyclone, the chakra coming out of his body was so thick that it was almost visible to the naked eye. Sasuke's heart was filled with warning signs. Sasuke was no stranger to 8 inner hidden gates. He still remembered the battle between his father Uchiha Fuyue and Kakashi for the 5th Naruto. And in that battle, Kakashi had used the 8 inner hidden gates, and in front of everyone's eyes, he had forced Fugaku into a desperate situation after he had opened the Susanoo. Since then, Sasuke had a clear understanding of 8 inner hidden gates and understood that this was a technique that could rival the Manjikyu Sharingan Susanoo. After opening the 4th gate of pain, Xiaoli on the opposite side stopped opening the gate. At this time, the skin on his body became red, as if his blood had completely boiled, penetrating into every pore of his body, and the blue veins on his cheeks were bulging. If the first 3 gates of 8 inner hidden gates only lifted the restrictions of the body, then after the 4th gate, Gate of Pain, he really stepped into the danger zone. At the same time, the greater the danger, the greater the reward. After opening the Gate of Pain, although the body's muscles, meridians, and even organs will be damaged to varying degrees, but the increase in speed and strength will be greater than when opening the first 3 gates. Bloom youth. Xiaoli clenched his fists and shouted to the sky as if making a declaration. Seeing that Xiaoli could easily set off a wave of air with just a wave of his arm, Sasuke's eyes suddenly narrowed, and his face became more gloomy. At this time, Xiaoli slammed on the ground. Bang! In a loud explosion, the ground under Xiaoli's feet collapsed, and his whole body was like a cannonball, flying towards Sasuke. Feeling the huge shockwave coming towards him, Sasuke's face stiffened for a moment, then immediately made up his mind and activated his Sharingan to meet the incoming shockwave. Kuroto knows very well that if he is timid at this time, he will inevitably be thrown into confusion and be instantly defeated. So he can only choose to face the attack head-on, using the advantage of his Sharingan dynamic vision to find an opportunity to win in a disadvantageous situation. After all, the shining 1,000 birds in his palm was not to be trifled with. Swish, swish, swish. In an instant, Xiao Li and Sasuke left long after images behind as they attacked each other on the field with a whistling sound and a sandstorm. While using the 4th of the 8 inner hidden gates to open, he also used the thunder escape stimulation law to stimulate all the cells in his body. In this high-intensity confrontation, both sides broke through their limits, displaying a speed far faster than before. On the sidelines, hoo-hoo, bursts of shock waves mixed with sand and gravel blew over, causing the students watching the battle on the sidelines to raise their hands to protect their eyes, watching the battle in the field with difficulty. In the crisscrossing shock waves, everyone could only barely see the afterimages of Sasuke and Xiaoli shuttling back and forth. They could not capture the specific details of their battle. Not to mention the group of students. Even the teachers of the ninja school, such as Irika, who had the strength of a Chunin, could not capture the details of the battle between Sasuke and Xiaoli in detail. At this moment, it can be said that Sasuke and Xiaoli have reached the level of a Jonin in terms of speed alone. They may not be able to last long, perhaps they lack combat experience and skills, and lack rich tactics, but in terms of speed, they can indeed be compared to a real Jonin. On the temporary stance, Fuyu asked anxiously, "How is it?" Having lost his eyes, he could not perceive every movement in the field in real time. So although he sensed that Sasuke and Xiaoli were fighting fiercely, it was difficult for him to grasp the details of the battle. Mikoto on the side stared nervously at the field while saying to Fuyu, "It's not good. Sasuke seems to be at a disadvantage." Sasuke's situation was indeed not very good, facing Xiaoli who had opened 4 gates. Even if he used the thunder release stimulation method, he was at a relatively obvious disadvantage in terms of speed. Even with the explosion of Chidori and the assistance of the Sharingan, he could not hurt Xiaoli at all. And Xiaoli, who had opened 4 gates, gradually adapted to Sasuke's physical style. Her attacks became more and more threatening, and several times she almost broke through Sasuke's defense. Between the two of us, who will be the first to give up? A thought flashed in Sasuke's mind, but he immediately dispelled it. No, I can't just think about holding on. That's too passive. Swoosh! With such a distraction, Xiaoli's straight punch almost hit Sasuke's cheek. Although he narrowly avoided Xiaoli's straight punch, the wind brought by the punch blew on Sasuke's face as if he was slapped hard, making Sasuke feel pain on his cheek. Damn it! I can't treat this guy as the last in the line anymore. The burning pain on his face made Sasuke instantly alert. He realized that if he treated Xiaoli as the last in the line that could be easily defeated, he would be the one making a fool of himself. From this moment on, he must treat Xiaoli as a real strong opponent. Only then would he have a chance of winning. With the adjustment of his mentality, Sasuke, who had gotten rid of his anxiety and embarrassment, quickly thought of a strategy. Bang, bang, bang. At this time, Xiaoli, who seemed to be stepping on the air, moved quickly around Sasuke, looking for an opportunity to attack. But Sasuke gave up moving quickly and stood in place as if his physical strength was not enough. Swish Xiaoli did not miss the opportunity and immediately launched an attack, pouncing on Sasuke's back. On the rostrum, seeing Sasuke stop in place, Kakashi was shocked. Oh no! The thunder release stimulation method was taught by him to Sasuke, so he was very clear about Sasuke's limit, and the series of fierce battles just now had indeed reached the limit of Sasuke's endurance of the thunder release stimulation method. A trace of doubt flashed on Hyojin's face. Unlike Kakashi, who was confused because of his concern, he, who had the Tenseigan, was keenly aware that Sasuke seemed to be planning something, and he was not as helpless as he seemed to be on the surface. In just an instant, Xiaoli, with a whistling sound of breaking the wind, took advantage of Sasuke's back and punched hard. And at this moment, Sasuke turned around dexterously, looked at Xiaoli's eyes, and resisted Xiaoli's punch with his left arm. Bang! In a muffled sound, Sasuke's left arm was punched hard, and it was instantly dislocated. Ah! There was a sudden exclamation from many people on the sidelines because this was the first time in the whole competition that Sasuke was hit by Xiaoli head-on without blocking. With just this one blow, Sasuke lost his entire left arm. Xiaoli, who succeeded in one blow, did not hesitate, and once again punched Sasuke. But just when everyone thought that Sasuke was bound to lose, Xiaoli, who was punching, suddenly stopped, and a straight punch stopped abruptly 2 centimeters away from the tip of Sasuke's nose. At this time, Sasuke slowly closed the flying Samigaku Sharingan, and while gasping heavily, he muttered to himself, "I'm sorry, I must win this game." The second update is for Monday's recommendation votes and monthly votes. It's just a small effort. Please, everyone. In addition, thank you to the students who tipped yesterday. Thank you. Chapter 919. Huff! Huff! Sasuke, with a thin layer of sweat on his forehead, gasped for breath while holding his dislocated arm. Originally, he was going to use taijutsu and ninjutsu to end the competition fair and square, but the result was that he made himself so embarrassed, and in the end, he had to use the Jinjutsu of Sharingan to barely win the competition. Yes, Sasuke used the Jinjutsu. After realizing that his speed, strength, and even endurance are completely behind Xiaoli, who has opened 4 gates, Sasuke had to use the Jinjutsu of Sharingan. Using himself as bait, and at the cost of his left arm dislocated, he found an opportunity to use the Jinjutsu. And at the last moment, he successfully used the Jinjutsu to subdue Xiaoli. Slowly moving his head away from Xiaoli's fist, Sasuke was a little relieved. In fact, Sasuke's current level of Jinjutsu should be the worst among all the Uchiha clansmen who have 3 Sharingan, far less than Jinjutsu geniuses like Jishui and Itachi. But after all, he has a pair of 3 Sharingan, so using ordinary Jinjutsu is more than enough to deal with Xiaoli, who has no experience in dealing with Jinjutsu. At this time, a discussion broke out on the sidelines. What's wrong with Xiaoli? Did she get hit by a Jinjutsu? When did Sasuke use Jinjutsu? This is too unexpected. In the eyes of the other students, Xiaoli, who should have won, at the last moment, when her fist was close to the tip of Sasuke's nose, she was hit by the Jinjutsu of Sharingan and lost the competition. Naruto also scratched his head with a puzzled look. Why did Xiaoli stop? Ningxi, who was lying on the medical bed, said to Naruto with a solemn expression, "Naruto, if you meet Sasuke in the next match, try not to look him in the eyes." Naruto gave him a puzzled look. Why? Ningxi explained, Sasuke's Sharingan is the San Magatama Sharingan. Not only can he see the details of your body, but he can also capture and simulate your movements and ninjutsu. He can even cast Jinjutsu directly with his sight. Illusion? Is Xiaoli under an illusion? And Ningxi nodded and said, without the corresponding pupil power, it is difficult for ordinary people to resist the Jinjutsu of Sharingan. So if you want to avoid being controlled by his Jinjutsu, you must always be vigilant of his sight. At the rostrum, Kakashi returned to his seat and laughed self-deprecatingly. This kid Tisk. Hyojin spat lightly. The advantage of pupil Kekiai Jinjutsu was so great and unreasonable. Even if ordinary people put 2 or 3 times the effort, they would all be in vain under a glance. Just like Fuyue's relaxed look when he learned that Xiaoli only knew taijutsu, it could be said that except for Guy, who could accurately judge the opponent's movements by observing the middle and lower body of the opponent. Other pure taijutsu ninjas were basically suppressed by the Sharingan's dynamic capture and Jinjutsu. At the temporary stand, Itachi chuckled and said, "Sasuke won." Fuyue put away his previous nervousness and said with a smile, "What a pity." Although he said it was a pity, from Fuyue's expression and behavior, it could be clearly seen the joy in his heart. Obviously, his son defeated the enemy who used Hashiman Tanku, which made him feel happy. Mikoto was happy and worried at the same time. While she was happy for Sasuke's progress, she was also faintly worried about whether Naruto could defeat Sasuke, as expected in the script, and stimulate Sasuke to awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan. She knew very well that her husband Fuyue had given everything. As long as Sasuke could awaken to the Manjikyu Sharingan, Fuyue was willing to sacrifice his life. So as Hyojin planned, stimulating Sasuke to awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan without bleeding is the best result for their family. On the field, Sasuke removed Xiaoli's Jinjutsu and whispered, "I'm sorry." He has the arrogance of the Uchiha clan in his bones. He was inexplicably ashamed of using Jinjutsu to defeat Xiaoli. After all, Xiaoli didn't know any ninjutsu. Xiaoli shook her head and said, "Thank you, Sasuke. You let me see the power of the Sharingan." Sasuke turned his face to the side and said, "Your taijutsu is not weak." After Sasuke and Xiaoli left the field at the same time, Hyojin immediately announced the next match. The next two matches were between female students, and the level returned to a relatively normal level. Among them, Ziyuin against Sakura and Yakumo against Ino. Both Ziyuin and Sakura only received ordinary ninja training in the My Hospital. Moreover, they weren't officially accepted as disciples by Tsunade, so the match between the two was quite normal. In the end, Ziyuin defeated Sakura with her physical advantage. The battle between Yakumo and Ino Yamanaka was a little more exciting. The Kurama clan is the Jinjutsu clan in the village, second only to the Uchiha clan. Although they have declined, their foundation is still there. Yakumo also awakened the Jinjutsu, so her talent in Jinjutsu is far better than the average Uchiha clan. The Yamanaka clan is the most powerful Jinjutsu clan in the village. They can sneak their consciousness into the opponent's body and temporarily control them. They can also search the opponent's brain to collect information. It is an extremely rare and strange Jinjutsu. The fight between Yakumo and Ino didn't look fancy on the surface, but in fact, it was extremely dangerous. One careless move would result in a quick defeat. Relatively speaking, Yakumo's strength is obviously above Ino's, so in less than 30 seconds, Ino fell into Yakumo's Jinjutsu and lost the match. Round after round of matches went on without a break. By noon, the first round of matches had come to an end. After a short lunch break, the second round of matches began in the afternoon. In the second round, Naruto faced Fong, and Sasuke faced Shino. Because of Hyojin becoming the headmaster of the shinobi school, and because of the tense and complicated situation in the shinobi world, Fong and Shino's strength has improved a lot compared to the original time. But compared to Naruto and Sasuke, they're still slightly inferior and were defeated one after another. After several rounds of elimination, this year only 4 people, Naruto, Sasuke, Yakumo, and Tian, were left. Needless to say, Naruto and Sasuke, except for Ningxi and Xiaoli, the other students basically have no chance of winning against them. Yakumo's Jinjutsu is too strong, and the students are still young. Almost no one has done any training against Jinjutsu, so one after another, even Shikamaru, who defeated Sakai and was favored by all the parents, was defeated by Yakumo. And Tian is really rich. The ninja tool scroll on her back is like a treasure chest. There are all kinds of ninja tools, and it seems inexhaustible. In the level of Jinjutsu, the advantage of this kind of ninja tool is too big. No one can bear it. And Ziyuin was directly forced out of the arena by Tian's hidden weapon continuous bullets. Here is the first one, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 920. After a whole day of competition, the sun was gradually setting in the west. After glancing at Naruto, Yakumo, and Tion, Sasuke's face was no longer cold and arrogant. Instead, it was replaced by a thoughtful expression. His left arm, which had been injured by Xiaoli, had already been healed by the medical ninja. However, after a few rounds of competition, the chakra in his body had been severely depleted. So, it was still hard to say whether he could get the title of first in the same batch. I have a Sharingan, so Yakumo's Jinjutsu is the least threat to me. Tion is a bit troublesome. She has obviously put in a lot of effort in throwing ninja tools. I'm afraid it won't be easy to deal with her with physical skills and ninjutsu. If the opponent is her, I can only choose to use Jinjutsu. If the opponent is Naruto, Sasuke analyzed the remaining 3 competitors one by one. At this time, he no longer had the thought of defeating his opponent beautifully. There was only one thing on his mind, and that was to win at all costs. In his analysis, Yakumo and Tion were obviously the lowest threat. Among the 3, the one who posed the greatest threat to him was Naruto. Although Yakumo and Tion had obvious advantages, at the same time, they also had their own weaknesses. Only the combination of Naruto's multiple shadow clone technique and Rasengan gave Sasuke little confidence. At this time, Hyojin announced, "Next match, Naruto versus Sasuke." "It really is Naruto," Sasuke said to himself. Then, without saying anything, he strode directly into the field. Neji, who had almost recovered from his injuries, got out of the medical bed at this time. Listening to Kuroto's announcement on the rostrum, he hurriedly said to Naruto, who was about to enter the field, "Be careful of his Sharingan." Naruto nodded. He now understood that Sasuke was his biggest rival for first place in his batch. As long as he could defeat Sasuke, the title of first place in his batch would be within reach. On the temporary stance. At the same time, Fugaku also heard the list of matchups announced by Kuroto, and his heart suddenly jumped. He and Hyojin have been planning for several months, waiting for this moment. Whether Sasuke can successfully awaken his Manjikyu Sharingan or not depends on this competition, so he can't help but be nervous. Itachi, who was at the side, also changed his previous calmness, and a rare look of nervousness appeared in his eyes. Once Sasuke awakens the Manjikyu Sharingan, then he can ask Hyojin to perform a surgery for Sasuke to fuse with the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. At that time, Sasuke will be able to surpass him and never lose his sight. On the main stance, after announcing the lineup, Hyojin sat back and asked Kakashi casually, "Who do you think will win?" Kakashi shook his head. "It's hard to say." Hyojin chuckled and said, "Yeah, it's really hard to say." According to Hyojin's previous estimation, Naruto, who has mastered multiple shadow clone technique and Rasengan, should have no problem defeating Sasuke. But judging from Sasuke's performance today, Kuroto realized that he seemed to have underestimated the 3 Magatama Sharingan, and also underestimated Sasuke. In today's competition, Sasuke played the advantage of his pupil Kekai Jinkai to the fullest, and the strength of the 3 Magatama Sharingan was also fully demonstrated through Sasuke's performance. And the attention of his parents and brother not only failed to disturb Sasuke's mood, but also made him put down everything and only seek victory. On the other side, looking at Sasuke, who has a childish face but a calm demeanor, 3 generations said, "It seems that Sasuke's talent is no worse than his brother Itachi. Maybe he can surpass Itachi and awaken his Manjikyu Sharingan like Jishui?" "Yeah," Jiraiya gently nodded. At this time, Sasuke already has the demeanor of Jishui, who awakened his Manjikyu Sharingan at the age of 11, and Jishui being able to awaken his Manjikyu Sharingan is inseparable from the Third Shinobi War. So in Jiraiya's view, what Sasuke lacks to awaken his Manjikyu Sharingan is probably just an opportunity. Tsunade looked a little sad and said, "The Uchiha clan is really full of geniuses. In the past, there were Fuyue, Jishui, Shinichi, Itachi, and Sasuke, plus the 2 Uchiha clansmen in Amatsukami and the mysterious person in Akatsuki. In the past 10 years, the Uchiha clan can be said to be full of geniuses, and this only served to highlight the decline of the Senju clan, which made Tsunade couldn't help but feel sad. 3 generations also sighed and said, "If Roke Tree is still here," Jiraiya quickly said, "Don't mention those unhappy things. The competition is about to begin." No one said anything more, and all eyes were focused on the field. In the field, Naruto and Sasuke, who stood looking at each other, formed the sign of opposition at the same time. The two of them were originally good friends who talked about everything, but after standing in the field to fight for the first place in the same batch, they had nothing to talk about. There was no greeting, no harsh words, and the two of them instantly entered the state of mind. Finally, he glanced at his parents and brother on the temporary stand. Looking at the anticipation on his family's faces, Sasuke put away all the distracting thoughts and locked his eyes on Naruto, who was opposite him. Naruto is a human pillar, and chakra is more than me. If I get dragged into a stalemate by him, I will definitely lose the competition like Ningxi. The only chance to win is in the first 2 or 3 minutes when I, chakra, still have plenty of time. If I can't win quickly, I will be the one who loses. My father attended my graduation exam under the advice of others. How can I repay him with a failure? No matter what, I must win. According to his own state and the situation of Ningxi and Naruto's previous fight, Sasuke had a judgment about this competition and made up his mind. The key was in the first few minutes. Win quickly or lose miserably. Therefore, not only did he instantly open his Sharingan, but he also did not hesitate to use his ocular power to the fullest, and 3 Magatama quickly flew in his scarlet eyes. Just like against Ningxi before, Naruto did not hesitate, and immediately quickly formed a seal and shouted, "Multiple shadow clone technique." Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, the field was filled with white smoke, and in the blink of an eye, hundreds of Naruto appeared, and with the cover of the white smoke, Naruto's real body was hidden among the many shadow clones and disappeared without a trace. Sasuke, who was already prepared, immediately shot dozens of shurikens in all directions, almost exhausting all the ninja tools in the ninja bag, and at the same time smashed 1/3 of Naruto's shadow clones. Just when everyone thought that Sasuke was going to rely on throwing ninja tools to fight against Naruto's shadow clones, Hyuga Rostrum was surprised to find that the ninja tools that Sasuke threw were not only wrapped with steel wires, but these ninja tools were also very orderly distributed, and if they were connected with the wrapped steel wires, it was like a steel wire net that covered the field. At this moment, Sasuke whispered softly, "Chidori." Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who tipped yesterday. Thank you. Chapter 921. The steel wires pulled by the shurikens and kunai crisscrossed each other like a carefully woven steel wire net, evenly covering the entire playground. In the center, several kunai firmly nailed all the wire ends to the ground. Sizzle, above the kunai nailed to the steel wire, was Sasuke, whose right hand was flashing with dazzling electric light. In the evening, the light gradually dimmed. The dazzling electric light on Sasuke's body suddenly attracted the attention of everyone present, whether it was the village leaders in the stands, the ninja school teachers, the students' families, or the students on the sidelines. All of them couldn't help but turn their attention to Sasuke. At this time, many people had already seen Sasuke's plan, and they were more and more looking forward to the fierce battle in front of them. In the field, after completing the arrangement, Sasuke did not hesitate and immediately pressed his right hand full of electric light on the kunai nailed to all the steel wire ends under his feet. Sizzle. In an instant, the whole playground was full of electric light. The Chidori on Sasuke's right hand extended all the way along the kunai, along the steel wire, and in the blink of an eye, it covered all the steel wire nets. At this moment, the steel wire nets covering the playground were like an electric net, shining the whole playground. It's so dazzling. What's going on? Hey, there's electric light everywhere. I can't see clearly at all. Caught off guard, Many spectators on the sidelines were dazzled by the sudden flash of electric light, and their vision became white, and they couldn't see anything clearly. Bang, bang, bang. Under this change, Naruto's shadow doppelgangers in the field were also destroyed by the manic thunder and lightning on the electric net, turning into white smoke with a low muffled sound. On the rostrum, Kakashi's eyes widened. This kid. Even Kakashi, who taught Sasuke Chidori, did not expect that Sasuke would come up with this method to deal with Naruto's almost endless shadow doppelgangers. Hyojin, who had already seen a trace of clues, was not too surprised, but secretly thought, Sasuke's understanding of thunder release is really not ordinary. No wonder he could surpass Kakashi in the future and develop Chidori flow, which is more powerful and more flexible. The current Sasuke obviously can't use Chidori flow to launch a large-scale thunder release attack like he did in the original time and space. Therefore, he can only use shuriken, kunai, steel wire, and other ninja tools to artificially create a power grid, and then directly output Chidori to the power grid, simulating the effect of Chidori flow in this form to complete an instantaneous large-scale lightning release attack. On the temporary stance, Itachi couldn't help but be moved, and a trace of relief flashed on his face. Sasuke has really grown up. He hopes that Sasuke can awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan in this battle. But at the same time, he also hopes that Sasuke can grow into a real ninja who knows how to think and analyze. Fuyue smiled reservedly. In fact, our Uchiha's fire release can also achieve this effect. On the field, Sasuke, who has completed a large-scale thunder release attack, his chest is violently heaving like a bellows. Although he has awakened the Samagatama Sharingan at this time, compared to the original time and space, he lacks the Curse of Heaven that Orochimaru imposed on him. Although Curse of Heaven can corrode the mind and disturb the mind, but after all, it is a kind of use of natural energy, and it can greatly increase the host chakra amount. And without Curse of Heaven, Sasuke's chakra amount is his biggest shortcoming. At the current age of 12, under normal circumstances, his chakra amount is almost bottomed out after using chakra amount 2 to 3 times. But just before against Xiaoli, he used chakra amount once, and several lightning release stimulated him. At this moment, he used the steel wire to cast a large-scale chakra amount, but the consumption of chakra is more than twice that of ordinary chakra amount. So, such a large-scale thunder release attack can only be used once, suppressing the dizziness and muscle discomfort. At the moment when the large-scale thunder release attack is completed, Sasuke used the Samagatama Sharingan in his eye sockets to see through the whole field. Under the attack, just now, there are only 7 Narutos that originally filled the entire field. In other words, Naruto's real body is among these 7 Narutos. And after a short moment of astonishment, Naruto also reacted. His real body and shadow clones raised their arms at the same time, preparing to cast multiple shadow clone technique again. Sasuke's eyes suddenly focused. The next few seconds will be the key to victory or defeat. If he is one step ahead of Naruto and finds out Naruto's real body, then he will be the one to win. On the contrary, if he is a step late and Naruto casts multiple shadow clone technique again, then the balance of victory will tilt towards Naruto. On the main stand, Kakashi was nervous at this time. When he found that after Sasuke's large-scale thunder release attack, there are still 7 Narutos left in the field, he had a premonition. Because even if it is him, it is difficult to find out the real body of Naruto's real body from the 7 scattered Narutos before Naruto casts multiple shadow clone technique again. Hyojin also looked at Sasuke with a playful expression. Sasuke's performance today can be called perfect, but unfortunately, at least at this point in time, Naruto's hard power is stronger than him. As long as Naruto casts multiple shadow clone technique again, then the competition is basically over. But at this moment, Hyojin's face suddenly stiffened. And almost at the same time, Sasuke also moved. His whole body rushed at a Naruto in the field with lightning speed. Looking at his determined figure, it seems that he is completely determined that the target is the real body of Naruto. Because when Sasuke examined the 7 Naruto in the field, only this Naruto deliberately avoided Sasuke's line of sight, and this detail at the same time was noticed by Hyojin outside the field and Sasuke in the field. The one who knows how to avoid Sasuke's line of sight is undoubtedly the real body of Naruto. And because it happened suddenly, the inexperienced Naruto did not realize that his correct way to deal with the Sharingan happened to become the flaw that exposed his real body. In an instant, Sasuke flashed in front of Naruto, and at this moment, Naruto's multiple shadow clone technique seal in his hand was only halfway formed. In shock, Naruto even stopped forming the seal in his hand. Sasuke did not waste any time and immediately glared at Naruto, activating the illusion of the Sharingan. Naruto suddenly felt dazed, and his eyelids became extremely heavy, as if he could not open them no matter how hard he tried. Then his body softened and fell to the ground. Bang, bang, bang. As Naruto fell to the ground, the remaining shadow clones also turned into white smoke and disappeared from the field. Huff, huff. Sasuke, who was panting heavily, had an ecstatic expression on his face. And Naruto, who had just fainted on the ground, suddenly opened his eyes again. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 922. In the blink of an eye, Sasuke swept away nearly 100 of Naruto's doppelgangers on the field, and from the last 7 Naruto, he accurately found the real body of Naruto. The whole process only took a minute. The smooth offensive showed Sasuke's own swift and fierce style, as well as the subtle insight of his Sharingan, incisively and vividly. On the temporary stand, watching Sasuke's proper use of tactics, using illusion to instantly defeat Naruto, Itachi was both gratified and a little regretful, but the corners of his mouth still showed his most sincere emotions. Perhaps in his heart, Sasuke could learn to restrain his arrogance and use tactics flexibly. This gain is not much worse than directly awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan. Listening to the sound of Naruto falling to the ground, the expression on Fuyue's face was very wonderful. It was a kind of mixed expression of joy, loss, and depression. Compared with her husband next to her, Makoto was much more indifferent. She smiled at Sasuke, who was sweating and panting in the field, and sighed, "Sasuke has really grown up." On the rostrum, Kakashi praised loudly, "Well done." Sasuke's performance in this game was perfect. Whether it was the formulation and implementation of tactics, or the grasp of the details of the battlefield, he almost reached the limit of what he could do. It seemed that he defeated Naruto quickly and easily. But in fact, as long as there was a slight deviation, he would be the one who lost. The eyes of the 3 generations also lit up. Uchiha has another Jishue. The 3 generations were very glad at this time that Jiraiya accepted Sasuke as his disciple, and early on included Sasuke, the genius of Uchiha, into Naruto's team. Tsunade said calmly, "This kid deserves to be the first in the same batch." Even if she was influenced by the 2nd generation Naruto and didn't have a very good impression of Uchiha, at this moment, she had to admit that Sasuke was the most outstanding one among this batch of students. Even Naruto, who also performed well, was overshadowed by Sasuke. Unlike others who began to praise Sasuke, Hyojin instantly activated the Byakugan at this time and confirmed the state of Naruto. In the past few months, the reason why Kuroto didn't train Naruto to fight against the Sharingan at all is mainly because of the lack of time, because Naruto only mastered Rasengan a few days ago. Before that, Naruto wasn't even proficient enough in the use of Rasengan and multiple cut doppelganger jutsu, so he couldn't divert his attention to train against the Jinjutsu. Or rather, at this age, almost all of the graduates are at the stage of consolidating their foundation and barely mastering 1 or 2 unique skills. They haven't done any specific training on illusion at all, so Yakumo, who was weak and sickly, was able to easily reach the top 4 with the help of Jinjutsu. If in another year or 2, when everyone is 13 or 14 years old, they have consolidated their foundation and began to study tactics and various confrontational training, the situation of being killed by Jinjutsu will obviously improve. However, Hyojin didn't completely give up because Naruto's situation is a bit special. Although the tenant in his body is very arrogant, but in Hyojin's previous special training, it helped him again and again, so it's not impossible for him to make a comeback, as long as the tenant in his body is willing to raise its hand. As Hyojin expected, seeing that Naruto was so easily defeated by the Sharingan, Ninetales immediately went crazy. Almost at the moment when Naruto fell to the ground, that is, when the surrounding audience just thought that the outcome of the battle had been decided, Naruto suddenly opened his eyes. You? Sasuke, who was close, noticed it for the first time, and the joy on his face suddenly froze, and his whole person was stunned. The round of attacks just now has consumed almost all of his chakra. At this moment, not to mention launching ninjutsu, even maintaining the state of Sharingan is very difficult. So when he saw that Naruto broke free from the Jinjutsu, he suddenly panicked. But then, Naruto's expected counterattack did not happen. After Naruto, who fell to the ground, opened his eyes, his face was full of shock, as if he just saw something incredible. Not only did he not get up immediately, but he also muttered to himself, What a big monster! Seeing this, Sasuke quickly kicked Naruto. Bang, with a muffled sound, Naruto, who was on the ground, was kicked out of the field by Sasuke. At this time, the audience reacted one after another, and Naruto had been forced out of the field by Sasuke, completely losing the match. Sasuke, who was sitting on the ground, was still scared at this moment. The moment he found that Naruto broke free from the Jinjutsu, he felt as if his heart was grabbed by someone, and he was so scared that it almost stopped beating. Sasuke did not understand why Naruto was able to break free from his Jinjutsu in an instant, nor did he understand why Naruto did not immediately counterattack. He only knew that he had no other ability except for that kick just now. At this time, Sasuke, who was covered in cold sweat, looked at Naruto outside the field, and then looked back in the direction of the rostrum. In the midst of the shock, he seemed to be a little unsure whether he had won or not. On the rostrum, Hyojin smiled, then got up and announced, Uchiha Sasuke wins. Looking at Naruto's expression as if he had seen a ghost, Hyojin knew that Naruto must have seen the tenant who lived in his body in his spiritual world. This also showed that Ninetales did lend a helping hand to Naruto and drag Naruto out of Sasuke's Jinjutsu. For Hyojin, this was an acceptable ending. Ninetales pulled Naruto into the spiritual world, and for the first time, their image was revealed in Naruto's eyes. This meant that Ninetales either felt pressure from the Akatsuki organization and decided to cooperate with Naruto, or Ninetales accepted the careless Naruto. After all, Naruto's entire childhood had been hated and rejected by others. This was inexplicably similar to Ninetales. On the field, waving to his family on the temporary stand, Sasuke squeezed out a smile that was not so carefree. Who suddenly, a gust of night wind blew. Sasuke felt a chill on his body, and only then did he realize that the clothes on his back were completely soaked in cold sweat, so his face sank, and he thought to himself, damn it, he never thought that Naruto could give him so much pressure, especially when Naruto opened his eyes just now. Not only did it make him break out in cold sweat, but it also made his heart palpitate until now. Glancing at Naruto, who was surrounded by the medical class in the distance, he secretly made up his mind. Just you wait. Naruto, next time I will definitely defeat you cleanly. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the classmate who tipped yesterday. Thank you. Chapter 923. Although the episode of Naruto breaking free from Sasuke's Jinjutsu caused many people to be surprised, it did not change the situation of the battle. In the end, the battle ended with Sasuke's victory. On the temporary stance, Fuyue said, It seems that the fifth Sama has miscalculated. Itachi on the side quickly said, Father, Naruto-sama will not make a mistake. This should also be within Naruto-sama's expectations. Well, it must be like this. Mikoto looked at her husband, and then looked at her son, and shook her head with a smile. In any case, Mikoto was satisfied with such a result. It would be best if Sasuke could awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan, but now he can put down his arrogance and think and analyze like a real ninja. In Mikoto's view, this is a huge growth that is not inferior to awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan. On the rostrum, Hyojin waved his hand expressionlessly and signaled the teachers to clean up the playground and prepare for the next match. Although he was a little regretful that Naruto did not defeat Sasuke, his mind was not on it at this moment, because the action of the Nine Tails just now made Hyojin see a possibility. That is, to let the Nine Tails and Naruto completely open their hearts, so that Naruto can become the perfect Jinchuriki in advance. As long as Naruto does this, then Sasuke will always be suppressed by Naruto before he awakens the Manjikyu Sharingan. At that time, it will be easy to find an opportunity to stimulate Sasuke. After the teachers cleaned up the playground, Hyojin immediately announced the second match. The battle between Yakumo and Tian also attracted a lot of people's attention. After all, although there are many female ninjas in the shinobi world, among the strong ninjas, there are still male ninjas. It was quite rare for Yakumo and Tian, who were both female ninjas, to be able to defeat so many of their peers and enter the top 4. Before this, the Kurama clan even had the idea of letting Yakumo leave the school, because while awakening the powerful Kekkei limit, Yakumo's frail body was also deteriorating. In the end, it was Hyojin who invited Tsunade and asked Tsunade to personally nurse Yakumo's body, allowing Yakumo to persist until graduation. But after an entire day of fighting, Bai Yun had reached her limit, so she stood in the middle of the field with a dispirited expression. Unlike Yakumo, Tian is in a good state because she's been fighting with ninja tools. Chakra's consumption is far less than Yakumo's, and because she entered the top 4, she is full of confidence. The duel between the two of them soon began. Tian, who knew how powerful the Hachi Cloud illusions were, closed her eyes as soon as the battle started, sealing off her vision, which was the most easily affected by the illusions. She then quickly retreated while opening her ninjutsu scroll. In an instant, she launched an indiscriminate attack on the entire field. Yakumo seemed to have expected that Tian would do this, and after trying to use her Jinjutsu to disturb Tian, she decisively withdrew from the field and ended the duel. Watching Yakumo voluntarily withdraw from the field and admit defeat, the audience felt that it was not enough. But everyone also understood that most of the students who participated in the graduation exam were only 12 or 13 years old, and Chakra's reserves can't be compared to real adults. In the top 4, except for Naruto, who had the Jinchuriki, and Tian, who didn't consume much of Chakra's energy, even someone as strong as Sasuke was exhausted. So, Yakumo's physique was weak, and she couldn't withstand a battle of attrition. So, directly admitting defeat is the wisest choice. Anyway, the result of Yakumo entering the top 4 has greatly exceeded the expectations of the Kurama clan, and this can be seen from the smiles on the faces of the Kurama clan members in the stands. After Tian left the field, Kakashi on the rostrum suggested, "It's getting late, why don't we arrange for dinner first, and the last match will be held after dinner." Kakashi is obviously trying to buy time for Sasuke to recover. After all, in the battle with Naruto just now, Sasuke completely squandered all the chakra on his body, and in the end, his body was trembling a little. Even if Sasuke has the help of a Sharingan and is not afraid of the ninjas, the odds of winning are not high. Jiraiya immediately nodded and said, "Well, let's arrange for dinner first." The 3 generations pondered for a moment and then nodded. Hyojin smiled and said, "Okay." Hyojin indeed hopes to use an unforgettable defeat to stimulate Sasuke to awaken his Manjikyu Sharingan, but Xiaoli and Naruto have been defeated by Sasuke one after another, and at this time, it would seem too deliberate. Moreover, if Sasuke loses in a state of exhaustion, he will undoubtedly feel a lot less humiliation, and the stimulation effect will inevitably be greatly reduced. So even if Sasuke is defeated by Tian at this time, he most likely won't be able to awaken his Manjikyu Sharingan. After everyone had dinner, the sun had completely disappeared from the horizon, and the night shrouded the earth. Because they didn't expect that today's graduation exam would last until night, the ninja school prepared lamps to illuminate the entire playground, and it was delayed a little. When everything was ready, it has already been 2 or 3 hours since the match between Sasuke and Naruto. 2 or 3 hours of rest. Although not enough to fully recover chakra, it is barely enough for Sasuke to fight again. So under the announcement of Hyojin, Sasuke and Tion quickly appeared on the stage. Sasuke's face was solemn. Today's continuous hard battles have worn down a lot of his arrogance. Tion is full of fighting spirit, and she doesn't seem to have much burden in her heart. Obviously, she is very satisfied with the current results. Even if she loses to Sasuke, she is still the second in her cohort. Soon, the match began. Clang, clang, clang. In an instant, the two sides launched the first real ninja duel in the graduation exam. The entire playground was filled with the sound of ninja tools colliding in the air and the sparks generated by the collision. Seeing the countless flying shurikens and kunai in front of him, the 3 tomo on the Sharingan and Sasuke's eye socket spun faster and faster. Suddenly, Sasuke's figure disappeared on the spot. Seeing Sasuke suddenly disappear in front of her, Tion was taken aback. But her surroundings were completely blocked by ninja tools. She didn't understand what Sasuke was going to do. At this moment, Sasuke cut through Tion's ninja tool blockade with a strange route, his body almost sticking to the edge of the shurikens and kunai as he rushed in front of Tion. You! In shock, Tion immediately closed her eyes. However, Sasuke didn't use Genjutsu as Tion expected. Instead, he directly kicked Tion out of the field with her eyes closed. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes to support. Chapter 924. Sasuke's instantaneous attack and easy victory. Although it seems a bit sudden, but in fact, in the eyes of a master, this is a very normal thing. Competing with Uchiha, who has 3 Sharingan in ninjutsu throwing, it must be known that when Itachi was less than 10 years old, he once defeated an elite root ninja who was on a hunting mission. So this kind of thing, just listening to it will make people feel very stupid, because Uchiha Sharingan is better than Byakugan, Hongan, and Blood Dragon Kekii, etc. Not to mention an ordinary ninja like Tion, who has no Kekii. What's more, Sasuke is also better than Tion in terms of taijutsu, ninjutsu, and tactical application. It can be said that the two sides are not on the same level at all, so it is reasonable for Tion to lose. When Naruto was defeated, many people, including Hyojin, were already sure that the title of first in the same batch is in Sasuke's pocket. So as Tion was forced out of the field, the cheers around quickly sounded, such as Sakura, Ino, and other girls who admire Sasuke rushed into the field one by one and expressed their congratulations to Sasuke. Sasuke, you are so great. Sasuke, you are really the strongest. Wow, Sasuke, you are so handsome. Since Sasuke didn't have his entire family wiped out, the current Sasuke was only slightly arrogant compared to the gloomy Sasuke of his original world. That was why he couldn't help but smile proudly after being congratulated by all the female students of the same generation. I also got the first place in the same batch as my brother. In the pride, Sasuke looked at his parents and brother in the temporary stands on the sidelines. Seeing Sasuke's gaze, Mikoto smiled and waved her hand in the temporary stands. Itachi also nodded at Sasuke. Even Fuyue, who was used to keeping a straight face, smiled. Now that things have come to this point, they no longer care about stimulating Sasuke to awaken his Manjikyu Sharingan. After all, Sasuke has defeated so many strong enemies and won the title of first in the same batch, which is also something to be happy about. At the other end of the temporary stands, Hayashi and Richa looked at each other and sighed at the same time. In the competition with the Uchiha clan, the Hyuga clan suffered another defeat. Not only Hinata of the Zone clan was defeated by Yakumo, but even Ningxi, the genius of the Hyuga clan, was defeated by Naruto. It can be said that other than things related to Hyojin, the Hyuga clan has never gained any advantage in front of the Uchiha clan. Fortunately, Naruto is Hyojin now, and the Hyuga clan and the Uchiha clan are known as the two great pupil technique bloodline clans of Mai, so no one dares to openly question them. At this time, the two brothers looked at the field together and saw Hinata was blushing and comforting the somewhat depressed Naruto in a low voice, while Ningxi stood quietly on the side. No one knew what he was thinking. Hayashi thought to himself, Hinata can't be counted on. It seems that I can only pin my hopes on Hana Hoasai. Richa thought to himself, why did he lose to Naruto? It's such a coincidence. This time, Ningxi will think nonsense again, sigh. Almost at the same time, the two brothers sighed in unison. On the rostrum, 3 generations led a group of advisory elders to Hyojin and said, Kuroto, it was indeed the right choice to hand over the ninja school to you. The graduation exam held by the ninja school today was of a high level, far beyond the expectations of the advisory elders. Compared with this year's graduation exam, the previous graduation exam was like a child's play. Therefore, no matter how mean and picky a person was, they couldn't deny the achievements of Hyojin, the headmaster of the ninja school. Hyojin smiled and said, I just did a little bit. The main thing is that the students worked hard enough. This year's students were not the same as the previous years. Even if they played around in the ninja school for a few years like in the original space and time, many elites would grow out of this year's students in the future. Therefore, Hyojin really didn't put much effort into managing the ninja school. He just increased the pressure on the students and instilled the sense of worry and competition in the students in advance. Of course, for the headmaster of a school, having a good grasp of the general direction is the greatest achievement. On this point, Hyojin also deserved the recognition of 3 generations. At this time, 3 generations glanced at the students on the playground and said with a smile, Hey, it's good to be young. Although this year's students were fighting fiercely in the competition, their relationship in private was very harmonious. Even Sasuke, who was usually cool, had made many friends in the school, so as soon as the exam was over, everyone started to play. The parents on the temporary stands also chatted with each other at this moment. The parents of the students who had performed outstandingly in the exam were naturally bragging about their children to the parents around them. As for the parents of the students who had not performed well, some of their faces were gloomy, some of them forced a smile, and some of them were inquiring about ways to guide and train their children. There were all kinds of different kinds of things. Therefore, the liveliness on the temporary stands was no less than that on the playground. Zhuan Xiaochun suddenly asked Hyojin, how are you going to divide the graduating students into classes? When a ninja accepts a mission, it is often carried out in the form of a 4-man team. Under normal circumstances, a single genin can't accept a commission. So once this group of students obtains the identity of a genin, it means that they will be officially divided into classes and begin to carry out various commission tasks. Listening to Zhuan Xiaochun's question, everyone focused their eyes on Hyojin. Today, Hyojin is not only the headmaster of the ninja school, but also the village's 5th generation Naruto, so he has a decisive influence on the division of the students. Seeing that all the consulting elders were looking at him, Hyojin knew that they were worried that he would randomly divide the students into classes and reduce the influence of Naruto among the students. So he said, I'll consider the division carefully. In terms of the division, Hyojin was going to refer to the division of the 12 roaches in the original timeline, because the division in the original timeline was already very reasonable, so there was no need for additional adjustments. As for the extra 3 of them, Ziuin, Yakumo, and Sakai, they could form a team. As for the Jinchuriki of the 7 tails, Lifu was only temporarily living in Mai because of the pressure from the Akatsuki organization. Her identity was still a ninja of Takanobi village, so she did not participate in today's graduation exam, nor would she participate in the division of classes. The only thing that gave Hyojin a headache was how to assign instructors to the 12 roaches. No, it should be the 15 roaches now. It's the second half of the month. Please give me the monthly votes. Also, Thank you to the students who gave me gifts yesterday. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 925. In the original story, the mentors of the 12 roaches were Kakashi, Guy, Asma, and Kurenai. But now Kakashi is the acting Naruto who handles the daily affairs of the village. And Kurenai was also promoted to the captain of the Shadow Guards after Hyojin became the 5th Naruto. Asking them to give up their respective duties and serve as mentors for the freshmen is undoubtedly a demotion. Therefore, on this issue, Hyojin can't make a decision immediately. He needs to communicate with Kakashi and Kurenai in private to confirm their own wishes. In addition, Ziyuin, Yakumo, and Sakai's class also need to select a mentor. And considering the weak physique of Yakumo and the skill-based combat style of Ziyuin and Sakai, it may be more appropriate to select a medical ninja to serve as their mentor. As for the candidate, Hyojin chose Mute. Although Mute is not outstanding in terms of combat power, she has been with Tsunade for many years, so her experience in dealing with various incidents is absolutely incomparable. In addition, Mute herself is one of the best medical ninjas in the village besides Tsunade, so it is very safe to let her guide the group of Ziyuin, Yakumo, and Sakai. As for the other graduating students, except for the 15 roaches, Hyojin doesn't need to worry too much about them. He can assign Shunin to be their mentors according to the usual practice. After all, it is common practice in the village for Chunin to be mentors. Students like the 15 roaches who are eligible to receive guidance from Jonin as soon as they graduate are often rare exceptions. After a while, it was time to distribute the My Head Guards. As Naruto, Hyojin stood on the rostrum and personally distributed the My Head Guards to the graduating students one by one and encouraged them from time to time. Including Sasuke, who just won the first place, the students who received the My Head Guard from Hyojin were all excited because from this moment on, they are the real Mind Ninjas. When it was Naruto and Ningxi's turn to come on the stage, both of them looked guilty and didn't dare to look directly at Hyojin. Hyojin didn't say anything. He just gently patted them on the shoulder and then personally put on the My Head Guards for them. With the distribution of the My Head Guards, today's graduation exam of the ninja school has come to an end. The students were a little unsatisfied, and the parents all felt that the trip was worthwhile. And when they left, no one pointed at Uchiha Fuyue who had lost his eyes. The ninja world is a place where the strong are respected, and the strong will be respected. And Sasuke's performance today won honor for the Uchiha clan and also for Fuyue. Because Naruto saw the Nine Tails for the first time, the advisory elder group thought that there was a problem with the seal of the Nine Tails on Naruto, so Naruto was temporarily taken to the seal class. As a result, only Hyojin returned to his own small courtyard. Not long after Hyojin returned home, there was a knock on the door outside the courtyard. When he opened the door, the visitor was none other than his disciple Ningxi. Hyojin didn't ask for the reason and said casually, "Come in." Ningxi also didn't say anything and followed Hyojin into the house. After sitting down, Hyojin observed Ningxi's expression and said, "Very unwilling?" Ningxi nodded heavily. In a ninja school, he and Sasuke were known as the twin stars by the students of the same year, and they were the most dazzling figures of this year's students. In previous assessments, the two of them also had their own victories and losses, but today he was defeated in the hands of Naruto, and Sasuke, who was in a worse state, instantly defeated Naruto and won the title of first in the same year. This made him feel that he had failed to live up to the name of the genius of the Hyuga clan, and also failed to live up to the identity of Naruto's disciple. Seeing Ningxi's depressed expression, Hyojin asked casually, "Are you blaming me for not guiding you in the past few months?" Ningxi quickly shook his head and said, "No, I didn't mean that. I know you guided Naruto because you're Naruto, and Naruto is the pillar of the village. Protecting and guiding him is your duty as Naruto. I just have some doubts." Hyojin smiled and said, "What doubts?" Ningxi said with a serious face, "Sensei, after losing to Naruto, I carefully reviewed it, but in the end, I found that even if I didn't make any mistakes, I couldn't defeat Naruto as quickly as Sasuke did. The final result might be a longer stalemate, but I would most likely be the one who lost. Hyojin listened carefully and did not interrupt Ningxi. Ningxi continued, "It's not just Naruto. If my opponent was Xiaoli or Sasuke, I wouldn't have a chance of winning either." At this time, Kuroto said lightly, "Is this what you were wondering about?" Ningxi nodded. "Yes, I'm known as the genius of the Hyuga clan, but whether it's Naruto, Sasuke, or Xiaoli, I'm no match for them." "Why is that? Is it because I haven't worked hard enough? Or could it be that I've never been a genius, but just a mediocre person?" Looking at Ningxi's distressed face, Hyojin sighed secretly. "Hey, I still lack the brutal beating of reality." Ningxi's doubts reminded him of his time in the ninja school. Ningxi's current distress was why he couldn't beat the top and most special few in the same period. At that time, his distress was how to avoid being the last one. Such an embarrassment made him not know how to answer Ningxi's doubts for a while. Seeing that Hyojin did not speak for a long time, Ningxi asked, "Sensei, do you also think it's my own problem?" Hyojin smiled. "It's not a good habit to feel sorry for yourself. Setbacks are also valuable assets. Naruto, Xiaoli, and even Sasuke have experienced more setbacks than you. They can grow through setbacks, so why can't you? You have to know that my results in the ninja school are not as good as yours." Ningxi said, but I've mastered most of the soft boxing skills, but I still can't beat them." The corner of Hyojin's mouth twitched. "Who made the rule that the Hyuga clan can only practice soft boxing?" Ningxi was stunned. "But everyone in the clan said that as long as you learn soft boxing well, you won't be afraid of anything. Soft boxing is the advantage of the Hyuga clan." After a pause, Hyojin explained patiently, "But don't turn this advantage into a prison to imprison yourself. Learn what you need. Don't reject other ninjutsu, body arts, illusion arts. Only after you've tried all of them will you know what you're best at and what's most suitable for you." Ningxi was a little confused. Hyojin said again, "Also, Sasuke and Naruto are a little special. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes." Chapter 926. Special. The doubt on Ningxi's face became even stronger. He didn't understand why Hyojin suddenly emphasized that Naruto and Sasuke are very special. Hyojin explained, "The potential of the two of them is very great, far beyond the average person. No, it should be said that it is far beyond everyone. Throughout the history of the entire ninja world for thousands of years, the potential of Naruto and Sasuke is also ranked among all the ninjas. It can be said that only the Otsutsuki can barely surpass them. As for others, even the first Naruto, who is known as the god of ninja, compared to Naruto and Sasuke, there is a clear gap in their future achievements. This threshold is the six-path level that ordinary people can't cross. In the history of the world before the birth of Naruto and Sasuke, the only six-path level powerhouses that really existed in the ninja world were Kaguya, the sage of the six paths, and the two sons of the sage of the six paths, Indra and Azura of the Otsutsuki. Among the descendants of the sage of the six paths, even the first Naruto and Hashirama and Uchiha Madara, who awakened to Rinnegan, have not been able to cross the threshold of six-path level. Therefore, according to the six-path level, Naruto and Sasuke belong to the unique category. Their potential is not comparable to Ningxi's peers. After listening to Hyojin's words, Ningxi thought seriously. Is it because of the nine tails and the Sharingan? In his view, Naruto's advantage lies in the exaggerated chakra's amount of Jinchuriki, and Sasuke's advantage is undoubtedly the Sharingan. Hyojin smiled. That's right. The real special thing about Naruto and Sasuke is that the two of them have the sage of the six paths, the strongest and thickest thigh in the ninja world, not nine tails and Sharingan. But these secrets are obviously not convenient to tell Ningxi. Ningxi hurriedly said, "Sensei, they have nine tails and Sharingan, but I also have the Byakugan. If I work hard enough, I will definitely be able to surpass them, right?" Looking at Ningxi's expectant face, Hyojin hesitated, then slowly shook his head. From the perspective of Ningxi, he may think that he has already recognized the gap between him and Naruto and Sasuke, and it is his turn to try to catch up and even surpass this gap. But only Hyojin knows that the reality is cruel. In the next 3 or 4 years, if the influence of Hyojin's intervention is taken into account, then the growth of Naruto and Sasuke will only be faster and more exaggerated than in the original space-time. At that time, not to mention Ningxi and the others who are in the same batch as Naruto and Sasuke, even the Jonin of Hyojin's batch will not be able to surpass Naruto and Sasuke. When Naruto and Sasuke receive the gift of the Sage of the Six Paths and become experts of the Six Paths level, if Hyojin's bloodline netting plan fails, then even Hyojin will be ruthlessly surpassed by Naruto and Sasuke. Therefore, if Ningxi can't beat Naruto and Sasuke at this point in time, then the gap will only get bigger and bigger as time goes by. In the end, it will be like in the original space-time, where Naruto and Sasuke can match the ancestor of Chakra, Kagaya, and Ningxi will regrettably die tragically in a casual AoE attack of 10 tails. Seeing Hyojin shake his head, Ningxi was stunned for a while, and then asked with a bitter face, "Sensei, could it be that I can no longer surpass Naruto and Sasuke?" Hyojin said calmly, "Ningxi, don't carry too much burden. Just be yourself. If Ningxi wants to catch up with Naruto and Sasuke, the most direct way is to inject the genetic fluid like Hyojin, gamble on that slim hope, and try to fight for the Tenseigan. But in the original space-time, Ningxi is the only dead person among the 12 roaches of Mai. With this unlucky luck, he still wants to rely on luck to change his fate that is simply courting death. Instead of this, it is better to wait for Hyojin to achieve the Kekii net." After a long silence, Ningxi bowed to Hyojin. "Sensei, maybe I really am not as good as Naruto, Sasuke, and the others, but I don't want to give up just like that. Even if I can never catch up with them, I have to try hard. If I don't even dare to try, I will look down on myself, and I am not qualified to be your disciple." Hyojin glanced at Ningxi with a little surprise. At this moment, Ningxi's eyes no longer had the previous doubts and confusion. Instead, there was a kind of determination that had never been seen before. Interesting. After thinking to himself, Hyojin raised the corner of his mouth slightly and chuckled. A momentary determination is nothing. If you really decide to catch up with them, you have to be mentally prepared to be hit often. Ningxi said, "I understand. My father told me about your experience. When you're in a ninja school, you were not dazzling, not dazzling." Hyojin said with satisfaction, "Hey, this kid is quite good with words." Ningxi continued, "In the Third Shinobi World War, you also experienced many dangers. After the war, you were even implicated by Orochimaru's betrayal and were sent to the border by the village. But in the end, you still defeated the patriarch of the Uchiha clan and became the village's Naruto." Hyojin did not interrupt Ningxi. He just thought in his heart, "I didn't expect Richa to even tell this to Ningxi." Ningxi continued, "Compared to the setbacks you have suffered, what I have encountered is not worth mentioning at all. So as your disciple, I will not let go of any setbacks like you." After pondering for a moment, Hyojin said, "Since you have made up your mind, I will not say anything more. After the class assignment, I will put you and Xiaoli in the same class, and your instructor will be Metke, who taught Xiaoli the 8 inner hidden gates. You should know what to do, right?" Ningxi immediately responded, "You want me to practice the 8 inner hidden gates like Xiaoli?" Kuroto gently nodded. "Well, Hashimen Tanku does not only serve the Iron Fist. For us who have the Byakugan, once we master the Hashimen Tanku, the amplification effect on our soft fist is also very significant. However, the requirements of the 8 inner hidden gates are extremely high. It is not something that can be learned casually. You have to be prepared to suffer. If there is any technique that can let ordinary people intervene in the disputes of the Otsutsuki clan, then it is the 8 inner hidden gates. Guy's performance in the 4th Shinobi World War has proved that the 8 inner hidden gates can threaten a 6-path powerhouse. Although it requires assistance, and the cost is huge, It is the only technique that can let an ordinary person without the bloodline of the Otsutsuki clan to threaten a six-path powerhouse. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. In addition, I would like to thank the students who tipped me yesterday. Chapter 927. Hyojin doesn't know why Ningxi didn't practice 8 inner hidden gates in the original time and space. Maybe it's because Ningxi believes in the supremacy of soft fist, or maybe Guy thinks that Ningxi is not suitable to practice 8 inner hidden gates, or maybe it's simply because Ningxi is too embarrassed to ask Guy for advice. After all, the tragic death of his father in the original time and space was a huge blow to Ningxi, making him a little paranoid, a little glass-hearted, accustomed to using cold arrogance to protect himself. Although Niji's mind was still sensitive due to the fact that he was a caged bird, but because his father Richa didn't encounter an accident, and Hyojin Naruto is his teacher, so his character is still very positive. So in the face of Hyojin's arrangement, he almost didn't hesitate and immediately replied, "Yes, I will seriously ask Akai Sensei for advice." After thinking for a while, Suijin continued, "Not only soft fist, but also all kinds of ninja tools and sword in the future. You have to practice seriously. Only in this way can you expand your attack range, so that you can deal with a variety of enemies with ease." "Yes." Ningxi nodded seriously. When Hyojin was about to say a few more words, his eyes suddenly turned cold, and immediately his face sank, and he said to Ningxi, "Well, it's getting late. You go back and rest first. Sensei, good night." Ningxi quickly got up and saluted Hyojin, and then respectfully left the room. After Ningxi left, Hyojin faintly said to the empty room, "Come out." At this moment, a vague shadow walked out of the shadow in the corner of the room and said with a smile, "You are very attentive to your disciple." There is no doubt that this shadow is none other than Obsidian, dressed in the Akatsuki organization's attire and wearing a vortex mask. The Obsidian's sudden appearance surprised Hyojin. As he pondered over the Obsidian's intentions, he asked coldly, "What do you want?" Obsidian smiled. "After becoming Naruto, your aura has changed." Seeing that Obsidian had no intention of making a move, Hyojin immediately understood the purpose of Obsidian's visit. He also guessed why Obsidian chose this time to appear. Obviously, Obsidian was afraid of Amatsukami and worried that they would set up an ambush around Naruto and Fu, the 2 human pillars. That was why Obsidian chose a time when Naruto was sent to the sealing class and wasn't by Hyojin's side to find Hyojin. His intentions were obvious. Hyojin's attitude was still cold. "You also know that I am Naruto now. Do you think I will still cooperate with you?" "Naruto?" After a pause, Obsidian joked, "I only see a poor person bound by the cage bird curse. How could the real Naruto be bound by the curse?" Hyojin, who had already guessed the purpose of Obsidian's visit, deliberately showed a trace of resentment in his eyes. "This has nothing to do with you." The Obito shrugged and said with a casual smile, "The conditions I proposed before are still valid. As long as you cooperate with us, we will help you get rid of the cage bird that controls your life and death. You should know that we have this ability. Hyuga Aoki used our power to get rid of the caged bird that controls your life and death, and he is still alive and well." "Try and trick me?" Hyojin's heart skipped a beat. The news of Hyojin Aoki's death is still a secret, but it is not unknown. Because the last time Hyojin sneaked into Akatsuki by pretending to be Hyojin Aoki, after he failed, he turned to Otsutsuki Samurai, and the identity of the leader of Amatsukami was also thrown to Otsutsuki Samurai. Therefore, in addition to Hyojin and Akatsuki, on the surface, Amatsukami should also know about this matter, and Kakashi, who was present at the time, can also be regarded as a semi-insider. Therefore, at this moment, Obsidian deliberately said to Hyojin that Hyojin Aoki is still alive. In all likelihood, he is deliberately testing Hyojin, testing whether Naruto knows about this, so as to determine whether Amatsukami or Kakashi has passed the news of Hyojin Aoki's death to Hyojin. After thinking about all this, Hyojin said, "How did you do it?" "The caged bird, should be unsolvable. No one has cracked it for hundreds of years. Obsidian didn't speak immediately, but stared at Hyegen with a scrutinizing face. While judging whether Hyegen is lying or not, a doubt flashed in his heart. He still doesn't know about Hyegen Aoki's death. However, Hyegen's face was full of sincerity, and his eyes were full of desire and anxiety. It didn't seem like he was lying at all. Seeing this scene, Obsidian suddenly understood. Hey, not only did Amitsukami not pass the news to him, even Kakashi also concealed this information from him. It seems that this Naruto is really a puppet used by the 3 generations to perfunctory Uchiha clan. Thinking of this, Obsidian also figured out why Amitsukami and Kakashi both knew about Hyegen Aoki's death, but the Hyuga clan still put a bounty on the black market for the whereabouts of Hyegen Aoki. This is obviously because Hyegen Naruto is a puppet and has no right to know it all, so even the Hyuga clan was kept in the dark. And Obsidian didn't think that Hyegen deliberately concealed this news and kept the Hyuga clan in the dark, because in his opinion, there is no need for Hyegen to do such a thing. Feeling that he is a trump card, Obsidian's tone became more relaxed. As for how he did it, I can't tell you now, but as long as you do a small thing for us, we will help you remove the curse on your forehead. Hyegen shook his head decisively. If it's about the Jinchuriki, I can't do anything. They are now being watched by Amitsukami. Even I can't take them out of the village. Obsidian smiled. There is no need for you to take them out of my. Hyegen frowned and deliberately pretended to be uneasy. You have another action? What action? Don't worry, we are not interested in destroying Mai. We will not hinder you from being Naruto. Our goal is only the Jinchuriki. After slightly appeasing Hyegen, Obsidian continued, I can't tell you the action plan yet. What I need now is your attitude. Are you willing to cooperate with us? After struggling for a while, Hyegen said, as long as you don't target Mai and help me get rid of this damn cage bird, I can cooperate with you. Obsidian smiled in satisfaction. Very good. I will inform you of the specific arrangements later. During this period of time, you have to keep a close eye on the Jinchuriki for me. Kuroto nodded with an unhappy expression on his face. Kuroto, you really are a poor guy who doesn't know anything. Finally, glancing sympathetically at Hyegen, who was a puppet and was kept in the dark, Obsidian sighed his heart and disappeared into the twisted vortex. First update, please recommend monthly votes. Chapter 928. After confirming that Obsidian had left, Hyegen's face darkened and doubts arose in his heart. It's only been a few months since Akatsuki's last operation. Why is there another operation so soon? That shouldn't be the case. Did I make a mistake last time? With Akatsuki's fear of Amitsukami, it stood to reason that Nagato should choose to remain dormant. Hyegen even speculated that Akatsuki would disappear for a few years this time until they realized that there was no sign of One Tail's resurrection, and guessed that One Tail's Jinchuriki might still be alive. However, he did not expect that Obsidian would suddenly come to him, and from his tone, it seemed that Akatsuki would make a move soon. After carefully combing through the whole process of the last time he fought with Nagato, and after repeatedly confirming that he did not make any mistakes, the confused Hyegen suddenly realized something. Could it be that I overdid it and aroused Nagato's determination to fight to the death? As the saying goes, going too far is as bad as falling short. Last time, Hyegen followed Kuroto Aoki's train of thought and planted Amitsukami on the Otsutsuki clan on the moon, which indirectly gave Akatsuki and Nagato a lot of pressure. After all, the surname Otsutsuki itself was a kind of pressure. When he realized that the enemy was from the same clan as the Sage of Six Paths, even Nagato, who claimed to be a god, felt a little guilty. In addition, Akatsuki had never been able to gain any advantage over Amitsukami, and Nagato had been defeated by Amitsukami's Yama several times. This little bit of pressure that was constantly accumulating was probably the reason why Nagato decided to take the initiative to start a war. If that's the case, then I've outsmarted myself. After a pause, Hyojin thought to himself, "It seems that I don't have that much time." He thought that with One Tail's resurrection as a buffer, he still had a few years to attack the Kekii network and cultivate Naruto and Sasuke. Now it seems that Akatsuki did not intend to wait for One Tail's resurrection. So there was not much time left for Hyojin to prepare, at least not as much as he thought before. Coming to the study room on the second floor, Hyojin opened a scroll on the desk. While reading the scroll, Hyojin tapped his fingers on the table with a thoughtful expression on his face. This scroll was sent by Kakashi a few days ago, and the content of it was a proposal made by the third Inoki of the Rock Village to the Konoha side. The Rock Village suggested holding a Chunin exam for the 5 great ninja villages. On the one hand, the new generation of outstanding talents will be selected, and on the other hand, the current cooperation between the 5 great ninja villages will be solidified. Because with the increasing threat of Akatsuki, the cooperation between the 5 great ninja villages has become closer and closer. They even began to share intelligence with each other. So holding a Chunin exam to further consolidate this cooperation is indeed a good move. In the original story, Mai also invited allies to participate in his village's Chunin exam. In this way, to consolidate the relationship between allies and show their strength to their allies through their excellent genin. As for Orochimaru using the opportunity of the Chunin exam to launch Mai's collapse plan, it was purely because the Sancrypsis was too stupid and was fooled by Orochimaru. But Hyojin himself didn't care much about this proposal of the Rock Village. Because the Chunin exam is troublesome and doesn't bring any benefits, he was already busy and didn't have the mood to host such a large-scale event. But today, the sudden appearance of Obsidian made him realize that whether it was his Kekii network plan or the plan to cultivate Naruto and Sasuke, all have to be accelerated. Holding a Chunin exam may not be a bad thing. Thinking of this, Suijin stopped tapping on the table and took out the lightning clone body from the storage scroll he carried with him. Suddenly, a thought appeared in his mind. Kuroto's Thunder-style clone still needs some battles to get used to it. So he can take the opportunity of the Chunin exam to fight a few battles to his heart's content and complete the requirement of the soul compatibility step. At the same time, the cultivation of Naruto and Sasuke should also be accelerated. Especially Sasuke, he is currently at a critical point in his life, and whether he can awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan as soon as possible is likely to be directly related to his future. And since Naruto failed to stimulate Sasuke to awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan, then Hyojin, who is in a hurry, doesn't mind personally giving Sasuke an unforgettable defeat. After coming out of Hyojin's house, Obsidian didn't stop and hurried all the way to the Uchiha clan. At this time, there was still a trace of sympathy on his face under the mask. Before this, when he learned that Hyojin, who couldn't even beat him in the shinobi school, was selected as the village's 5th Naruto, a very complicated emotion surged in his heart. Although he didn't admit that it was jealousy, after confirming that both Amatsukami and Kakashi were involved in this matter, and at the same time concealing the death of Hyuga Aoki from the Hokage, Kuroto felt sympathy for Kuroto and gave him the evaluation of poor worm. Not long after, the Uchiha clan came into Obsidian's sight. Uchiha clan. Both Jishuei and Shinichi, dressed in the uniform of the Mai police force, walked on the long street of the clan. Shinichi looked around and asked in a low voice, "Jishuei, you said that Sasuke won the first place today. Did the boss go too far? Didn't he say that he wanted to give Sasuke a defeat to stimulate him to awaken the kaleidoscope? How is this possible?" Jishuei shook his head and said, "Senpai deliberately let Naruto and Ningxi compete before Sasuke to test Sasuke, to see if he can learn the lesson of the loser by watching the battle and adjust his tactics. So Sasuke winning the first place is obviously also in Senpai's plan." That's right. Shinichi thought about it, and it seems to make sense. Suddenly, Shinichi turned around, looked at a shadow in the distance, and frowned. Seeing this, Jishuei asked, "What's wrong?" Shinichi was still staring at the shadow in the distance, and murmured, "I think I felt something just now." Following Shinichi's gaze, Jishuei said, "There's nothing there. Maybe I sensed it wrong." Because Shinichi's perception was far superior to that of ordinary people, he could always perceive some strange natural phenomena from time to time. Therefore, suddenly perceiving something like what just happened often happened to him. After Jishuei and Shinichi disappeared on the long street of the clan, Obsidian's silhouette appeared in the shadow. Looking at the direction in which the two left, Obsidian curled his lips. The last rebellion was easily suppressed by Fire Demon from Amitsukami. What a bunch of trash. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who tipped yesterday. Thank you, everyone. As if thinking of something, Kwanmei asked, "By the way, has the matter of Sasuke's class division been decided?" Itachi shook his head and said, "Naruto-sama is still hesitating. This year's graduates are a bit special. I'm afraid we need a few jonins to act as instructors." Itachi was not worried about Sasuke's class division. First, there is Hyuga Naruto, so Sasuke will not suffer in class division. Second, Naruto's faction obviously intends to absorb and cultivate Sasuke, so the advisory elder group should not target Sasuke on the issue of class division. At this moment, Itachi's face suddenly changed and then returned to normal. He said to Kwanmei beside him, "It's getting late. Do you want me to send you back?" Kwanmei smiled sweetly. "No, it's only a few steps. You should accompany your family." Itachi no longer insisted. After sending Kwanmei out of the mansion, he turned to a remote corner of the house and said calmly, "Show yourself." At this time, Obsidian walked out of the shadows and said with a smile, "Itachi, congratulations on becoming the Uchiha clan's patriarch." Itachi's face suddenly sank. "If you came here just to provoke me, then you have already achieved your goal." As soon as they met, Kuroto deliberately mentioned that his father lost his position as patriarch due to Homusubi of Amitsukami taking away his Manjikyu Sharingan. Obsidian shrugged and said with a smile, "It's just a joke. What's wrong? It's in a few months. Are you still worried about the betrayal? Or are you not reconciled to it?" Seeing that Obsidian has been maintaining his illusory state, Itachi, who couldn't find an opportunity to make a move, said perfunctorily, "This is our Uchiha clan's own matter. There is no need for your Akatsuki to worry about it." Obsidian said with a playful look on his face, "It doesn't feel good to brush past the extinction of your clan, right?" Hearing this, Itachi's face became gloomier. Obsidian then said, "You're a smart person, so you should know that Mai, which is under the control of Naruto's faction, will never accept the Uchiha clan." Itachi said coldly, "What exactly do you want?" Obsidian no longer beat around the bush and said directly, "Cooperate with our Akatsuki. We will help you take back your father's Manjikyu Sharingan from Amitsukami." Itachi didn't show much interest and replied coldly, "Why should I believe you?" "Because Amitsukami is our common enemy." After a pause, Obsidian continued, "Don't you want to know why Amitsukami took away your father's Manjikyu Sharingan?" Itachi's expression changed, and he deliberately showed a trace of imperceptible eagerness. "Why?" Obsidian, who has the Manjikyu Sharingan, instantly caught the flash of eagerness in Itachi's eyes, and after a smile, he slowly said, "This involves a secret of Manjikyu Sharingan." Itachi frowned. "Secret?" Obsidian nodded, put away his smile, and said seriously, "Let me tell you a secret. Manjikyu Sharingan is not the end of the evolution of Manjikyu Sharingan. There is a higher form of Manjikyu Sharingan above it. That is Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan." Itachi was taken aback, and he couldn't help but show a bit of surprise on his face. But what surprised him was not the matter of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, but the fact that Obsidian also knows the secret of Manjikyu Sharingan. Is he really Madara Uchiha? Suddenly, a thought came into Itachi's mind. Looking at the surprise on Itachi's face, Obsidian was very satisfied. So he continued, "But the evolution of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan requires some special conditions." Itachi pondered for a moment and said deliberately, "You mean you need another pair of Manjikyu Sharingan? You really are a smart person. You understand it immediately." After a pause, Obsidian said, "The evolution of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan requires the fusion of two pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan that are related by blood. So, I suspect that the Homusubi who took away your father's Manjikyu Sharingan is likely to be a relative of your family, and a very close relative. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes." Chapter 930. Relative. Itachi was startled and immediately asked, "Why do you say that? You haven't awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan yet, so you don't know anything about it." Glancing at Itachi lightly, Obsidian explained, "The reason why the Susanoo activated by each pair of Manjikyu Sharingan is different in color and shape is because there are subtle differences in the pupil power of each pair of Manjikyu Sharingan. This difference stems from the different nature of each person's chakra. And the closer the blood, the smaller the difference in the nature of chakra. You should know that the male Homusi in Amatsukumi's organization also has the same red color as your father, and even the shape is very similar, right?" Obsidian didn't stop and said a lot in one breath. Listening to Obsidian's analysis, Itachi was shocked, and a trace of surprise appeared on his face. Although Obsidian didn't suspect Itachi because of the asymmetry of information, his analysis was correct. Not only did he guess that the male Homusubi had a blood relationship with Fuyue, but he also guessed the true intention of Amatsukumi to take away Fuyue's Manjikyu Sharingan. That is to fuse a pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan that will never lose its sight. Seeing Itachi's bewildered expression, the masked man thought that Itachi was shocked by his own analysis, and immediately thought to himself, "What an idiot! Such a character has appeared among his close relatives, and he didn't even notice it." He didn't suspect Itachi because he didn't believe that the Homusubi of Amatsukumi who sealed him with the Tenseigan sword was this 16 or 17-year-old Uchiha boy in front of him. After all, it has been 2 or 3 years since that battle. If Itachi is the male Homusubi of Amatsukumi, it means that Itachi awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan at the age of 13 or 14, which is obviously impossible in his opinion. Jishui has experienced the stimulation of war, but Itachi has only touched the tail of the war. Neither his relatives nor his friends have died. So in his opinion, the probability of Itachi awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan is infinitely close to 0. Furthermore, if Itachi was the Balrog of Amatsukumi, then the Uchiha clan would have long since joined forces with Amatsukumi. As the leader of Amatsukumi, Otsutsuki Samurai had no reason to help me suppress the Uchiha clan's rebellion. After all, Otsutsuki Samurai was not Naruto. It was not worthwhile for him to suppress his ally, the Uchiha clan, for the sake of a mere Mai. Therefore, from Obsidian's point of view, from the fact that the Uchiha clan's rebellion was suppressed by Amatsukumi, the possibility of collusion between the Uchiha clan and Amatsukumi can be completely ruled out. This also completely rules out the possibility that Fuyue and his son, as well as Jishui, Shinichi, and other core members of Uchiha clan, are part of Amatsukumi. Because if the two sides were colluding, then Amatsukumi would never accept Mai's request to suppress the Uchiha clan, because Otsutsuki Samurai on the moon has no reason to do so. It can't be for Mai's bounty. Looking at Itachi, who was silent for a long time, Obsidian said, "I have helped you narrow down the scope to this point, so you should have a suspect, right? Tell me, who do you suspect is Homusubi?" Itachi shook his head and said, "There is no one that fits the description." Obsidian's face sank and said with some displeasure, "At this time, we should be honest. You should know that it has been several months since the other party took away your father's Manjikyu Sharingan. If you still waste time here with me, you will never be able to take back your father's Manjikyu Sharingan." Itachi said, "There is no such person. If you don't believe me, I can take you to check the genealogy." Seeing Itachi's solemn face, Obsidian wondered, if there is no one alive, then what about the dead? Could the other party have deceived you by pretending to be dead? Obsidian took the initiative to mention pretending to be dead, because now he doesn't care whether his identity is exposed or not. Or at this point, it doesn't matter whether his identity is exposed or not. In the past, he acted as Madara Uchiha, on the one hand, to cut himself off from his past self, on the other hand, to increase pressure on the enemy. But now, with the success of Akatsuki destroying the two great shinobi villages of Mai and Rock Village, and successfully capturing many Jinchuriki, there is no need for the name Madara Uchiha to deter the enemy. Especially after learning that Amatsukami is part of the Otsutsuki clan. The name Madara Uchiha can no longer scare anyone. Itachi shook his head again. All the relatives who died in the war have been recovered. This made Obsidian a little puzzled. He pondered for a while and tentatively asked, "Your father didn't have any illegitimate children outside, did he?" Itachi's face turned black. "I don't know." Obsidian's eyes turned and thought to himself, could it be that there is also an Uchiha clan living on the moon? So no matter how much I investigate, I can't find out the identity of the two Homusubi. This time, his main purpose of sneaking into the Uchiha clan is to find out the identity of the male Homusubi of Amatsukami and eliminate this threat before the war. Although there are many experts in Amatsukami, there are not many who can really threaten Obsidian. Except for Yama, the leader of Amatsukami, who is currently recognized as the strongest in the shinobi world. The male Homusubi, who possesses the artifact Tenseigan, is the biggest threat to Obsidian in the shinobi world. In addition, there are others, such as Kamikaze Kama, Sitagarba Kama, Suijin, and the female Homusi. Although they're also very strong. As long as Obsidian is careful, it will be difficult for these people to cause fatal damage to him. Only the Tenseigan is too sharp. Once hit, even Izanagi will not be able to distort. It is really impossible to guard against. Converging his scattered thoughts, Obsidian turned his gaze back to Itachi and said, "If you still want to take back your father's Manjikyu Sharingan, it is best to find Homusubi as soon as possible, because that pair of Manjikyu Sharingan is also a priceless treasure for you. Who knows when you will be able to use it?" Itachi nodded. "I will think of a way." Seeing that Itachi has taken the bait, Obsidian said again, "Relying on your own strength alone is too weak. I suggest you use your current identity as Patriarch to win over Jishui and Shinichi. Don't worry, the leader has promised to let bygones be bygones about Shinichi's betrayal of the organization." Itachi was silent for a while this time, then said, "I will try my best." Obsidian said, "Be quick." Itachi was keenly aware of something and asked, "Why are you more anxious than me?" Obsidian didn't hide anything and explained, "Once we are ready, we will start a decisive battle with Amatsukami. So whether it is to find out the identity of Homusubi or to win over Jishui Shinichi, you'd better complete it within a month or two. Otherwise, your Uchiha clan will have no value to us, and we will not get back the Manjikyu Sharingan that was taken away from you." Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. In addition, I would like to thank the students who tipped me yesterday. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 9:31. In the blink of an eye, 3 days have passed since the graduation exam. Early in the morning, the graduating students returned to the ninja school after a 3-day vacation, waiting anxiously for the graduation assignment that may affect them for the rest of their lives. Therefore, the whole classroom was noisy, and the students who were familiar with each other gathered in twos and threes, talking about the assignment. "I will be assigned to the same class as Sasuke." "That's not it. How could you be in the same class as Sasuke with your wide forehead?" "Nonsense. You are the one who is talking nonsense." Sakura and Ino, the two rivals in love, quarreled as if there was no one else around them, completely ignoring the others around them. Shikamaru on the side muttered, "Ino is such a fool. Didn't his family tell him?" Whether it is interpersonal relationship or tactical system, the three families of Ino Shikacho have always been one, so the assignment may still be suspenseful for others, but for him, Shinichi, and Ino, it has long been destined. Naruto was a little confused at this time. He asked Sasuke, "Sasuke, Who do you think I will be assigned to the same class? How would I know? Sasuke, with his hands crossed in front of his chest, replied coldly. Ever since he got first place in his cohort in the graduation exam, he became more and more fond of acting cool. Moreover, his cohort seemed to be quite fond of it. Not to mention some girls, even some boys admired him very much. The admiration of the people around him made him even more proud. Naruto asked curiously, "Then who do you want to be in the same class with?" Sasuke glanced at Naruto and said coolly, "It doesn't matter who." At this moment, the door of the classroom was opened, and Asuma stood at the door and waved to the classroom. "Shikamu, Shinichi, Ino, come with me." "Yeah, I won." As soon as Asuma's voice fell, Sakura cheered loudly. Ino looked at Sasuke bitterly, then followed Shikamaru and Ding Ci out of the classroom with his head hung low. Ino Shikacho was the foundation of Naruto's faction. 3 generations had even put down their pride and personally sought out Hyojin a few days ago, hoping that Hyojin could arrange for Asuma to be the instructor of Shikamaru, Shinichi, and Ino. In this regard, Hyojin naturally had no objections. Soon, instructors came to the classroom one after another and led their respective students away. These instructors are all experienced chunin, and they are more than enough to guide students who have just graduated from a ninja school. As the number of students in the classroom decreased, the originally noisy classroom gradually quieted down. The reduction of their companions made the remaining students more and more nervous. Even Sasuke, who said that he didn't care before, couldn't help but glance at the classroom door. At this time, Kurenai appeared at the door of the classroom and shouted towards the classroom, "Hinata, Ashina, come with me." Hearing that Naruto was not among his teammates, Hinata looked disappointed, then said goodbye to Ningxi next to him, and hurriedly followed Ya and Shina out of the classroom. Ningxi, who was sitting in the corner, in addition to secretly paying attention to Naruto and Sasuke, was analyzing the situation of the students in the class. Perhaps because he already knew the result of his class assignment, he was in a good mood, so he was the first student in the classroom to notice the difference in the instructor. It seems that those who have a Jonin as an instructor should be the ninjas that the village will focus on training. Shikamaru, Chunisai, Ino, and Hinata, and Shina, who just left, should be among them. Thinking of this, Ningxi looked at Naruto and Sasuke sitting in the front row and thought, who will be their instructor? Kurenai had just left with Hinata, and Shina when Mute appeared at the door of the classroom and waved to Ziyuin, Yakumo, and Sasuke, who were in the classroom. Ziyuin quickly came up and said with a smile, "Mute-san, why are you here?" "Because Ziyuin has been learning medical ninjutsu in my hospital during this time, so she has long been familiar with Mute." Mute smiled and said to the 3 of them, "From now on, I will be your instructor. This is something that Naruto personally asked me to do, so you have to cherish this opportunity." Ziyuin, Yakumo, and Sasuke quickly bowed to Mute. "No need to be so polite." Mute laughed and waved his hand, then took out something that looked like a price list and handed it to Ziyuin and said, "By the way, I also have additional teaching subjects here, although they are charged. They're all very useful ninjutsu." When Ziyuin and Yakumo heard this, their interest was immediately piqued. One is the Miko of the Land of Demons, and the other is the only member of the Kurama clan who has awakened their bloodline limit. Money is really nothing to these 2 little rich women, especially Ziyuin. After the dormancy of the Akatsuki organization, the order in the Land of Demons has been restored again. Now, the Land of Demons has sent more than 20 samurai to Mai to protect Ziyuin, and all of Ziyuin's food and clothing in Mai will be covered by the Land of Demons. The students in the classroom looked at each other in dismay as they watched the muted class talk about the fees while walking away. Naruto subconsciously covered his wallet and said, "Does it cost money to learn ninjutsu from the instructor? Isn't this common sense? What's so strange about it?" Sasuke, who was also confused, didn't want to show his fear in front of Naruto, so he deliberately pretended to be very knowledgeable. Shally scratched his head and said with some embarrassment, "But I don't have money. Tian cast a pitiful look and sighed. Sigh, if you're in the same class as me, I will pay for your ninjutsu. After getting second place in the graduation exam last time, Tian received a large amount of pocket money. One must know that Tian's family is one of the top ninja tools merchants in the village. And for ordinary ninjas, even if they perform very ordinary tasks, they will consume a lot of ninja tools. So Tian is a rich woman who can compete with Ziyuan in terms of wealth. After hearing Tian's words, Xiaoli was suddenly moved. Thank you so much, Tian. Sakura was puzzled. Xiaoli, don't you not know any ninjutsu? Why are you worried about spending money? Little Li was stunned for a moment before he smiled happily and said, yes. Looking at his future teammate, Ningxi was speechless. Hey, this is not something to be happy about at all. At this time, Kai came to the classroom and shouted loudly, Xiaoli, Ningxi, Tian, come with me. Seeing that her instructor was Kai, Xiaoli was overjoyed. Because Ningxi already knew, he was very calm. Tian was also very satisfied with her teammates. Whether it was Ningxi or Xiaoli, they were all outstanding students in this year, especially Ningxi, who is Naruto's disciple, and he is also very handsome. Not long after, as the students were led away by the instructor, only Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura were left in the classroom. First update, it's almost Monday. All kinds of rankings will be updated. Please recommend and support. It's nothing. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 9:32. When only Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura were left in the classroom, Sakura held back her laughter. Ha! I really am Sasuke's destined wife. It's just that Naruto is too much of an eyesore. He always comes between me and Sasuke. How annoying. While making eyes at Sasuke, Sakura could not help but despise Naruto, who was sitting between her and Sasuke. Naruto looked left and right and said happily, Sasuke, Sakura, there are only the three of us left. Great, it seems that we have been assigned to the same class. Sakura first glared at Naruto, and then said gently to Sasuke, Sasuke, you are our first in the same batch. Please take care of me in the future. Sasuke said coolly, I'm warning you. Don't drag me down. Sakura quickly nodded. Yes, I will definitely work hard. Naruto held the back of his head with both hands and muttered, What? I was careless during the graduation exam. Otherwise, I wouldn't have lost to you at all. The corner of Sasuke's eye twitched, and he turned his head to the side guiltily. Loser, Naruto said angrily. Hey, who are you calling a loser? Bang, Sakura knocked Naruto's head heavily. Naruto, Sasuke is our first in the same batch. Can you stop pestering him? Naruto curled his lips. We're all classmates. Sakura, why are you always partial to him? Unlike Naruto, who was unpopular in the original space and needed to play pranks every day and even paint Naruto rock to win the attention of others, Naruto in this space and time not only learned the immortal arts, but also learned the multiple shadows technique and Rasengan that could be used at any time, and he also became a disciple of Hyuga, Naruto. Therefore, his self-confidence was much stronger than in the original space and time, and he treated people more calmly and naturally. Therefore, although he had hidden feelings for Sakura, he was not as clumsy and flamboyant as he was in the original space and time. Sakura directly ignored Naruto and approached Sasuke. Sasuke, who do you think our instructor will be? Sasuke said, It should be a Jonin. At this moment, Sasuke also understood that the students with a background were almost always guided by a famous Jonin in the village, so most of their class was the same. After all, Kuroto is a genius of the Uchiha clan, the first in his batch, and although Naruto is an idiot in Kuroto's eyes, he is still a pillar of strength that is valued by the village. So the possibility of the instructor of this class being a Chunin is very small. Kids, come with me. As soon as Sasuke's voice fell, a lazy voice came from the classroom door. The three people in the classroom looked in the direction of the voice and saw a ninja with silver gray hair in his hand, leaning against the door of the classroom with drooping eyes. There was no doubt that this person was the current Naruto representative in the village, Hatake Kakashi. Is that Kakashi-sensei? It's not Kuroto-sensei. At the same time, Sasuke and Naruto showed a look of disappointment on their faces. Although he was very familiar with Kakashi, Sasuke still hoped that his brother Itachi would be his instructor, while Naruto looked forward to continuing to be guided by Hyojin. You two brats. Looking at Sasuke, Naruto showed a look of disappointment on his face. Kakashi looked depressed. He took time out of his busy schedule to guide the Jonin, but Sasuke and Naruto actually looked down on him at the Naruto building. At the same time as the ninja school was dividing the classes, a meeting related to the graduates was also going on in Naruto's office. Looking at the news from the Cloud and Sand Crypsis villages on his desk, Hyojin said, "It's just a Chunin exam. I didn't expect them to be so active." After receiving the proposal of Rock Village to jointly hold the Chunin exam, Konoha conveyed Rock Village's proposal to the other shinobi villages, wanting to hear the opinions of the other shinobi villages. However, Kumogi-Cure and Sand Village quickly sent a message and agreed to Rock Village's proposal. As a result, among the 5 villages, Rock, Cloud, and Sand Crypsis agreed to jointly hold the Chunin exam. 3-2. Mai's opinion is insignificant. On the sofa, 3 Generations said leisurely. Inoki made this proposal, most likely to use the opportunity of the Chunin exam to restore the reputation of the Rock Village in the shinobi world. Well, it should be like this. Zhuan Xiaochun on the side nodded and agreed with the view of 3 Generations. Although both Rock Village and my village were destroyed by the Akatsuki, but Mai was able to repel the Akatsuki, and Rock Village was completely captured by the Akatsuki. The difference between the two was huge. Therefore, in the recent period of time, 3 Generations, Inoki has been trying to find ways to restore the huge negative impact of the fall of Rock Village on the Rock Village. From this, it is not difficult to see that Inoki's proposal this time is to use the opportunity of the Chunin exam jointly held by the 5 villages to improve the reputation of the Rock Village. Since Cloud Village agreed so easily, it is most likely that they have the same idea. After all, the 2 perfect Jinchuriki of Cloud Village have been captured by the Akatsuki. Especially the capture of the powerful Hachibi's Jinchuriki was a heavy blow to Cloud Village. So Cloud Village naturally wants to restore some reputation through the Chunin exam. As for the Sand Crypsis, they have always liked to join in the fun, and it is not ruled out that they also want to show off their reputation in the Chunin exam. Tsunade said indifferently, "Even if it is a Genin, our Mai will not be afraid of them." Hyojin glanced at Tsunade and said, "Mai's Genin, hee." Jiraiya said confidently, "Sasuke, Naruto, Ningxi all have strength close to or even beyond the Chunin level. Even if they really want to hold the Chunin exam, our Mai has nothing to worry about. There is no doubt that the graduation exam 3 days ago has given the advisory elders a lot of confidence." 3 Generations looked at Hyojin and asked, "Kuroto, what do you think? Since they all want to gain reputation from us." Hyojin smiled and said, "Then let them come." Zhuan Xiaochun asked, "Then which Genin should we send to participate in this Chunin exam?" Hyojin thought for a moment and said, "In my opinion, the Kakashi class, Asma class, Metke class, Sunset class, Mute class can all try." Several advisory elders analyzed the graduates of these classes and also felt that these graduates are qualified to participate in this Chunin exam, so they nodded in unison. The second update, please kindly ask for recommendation votes in the new week. It is a small effort. Please don't forget. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts yesterday. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 9:33. In a practice field in the village, Naruto waved his fist and said, "Kakashi-sensei, what are we going to take on the task? I can't wait to do it." Sasuke, who crossed his arms in front of his chest, did not speak, but his eyes were full of eagerness. Ring, ring, ring. At this time, Kakashi took out 2 bells from his pocket. Huh? Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura looked at the bells in Kakashi's hand. Kakashi then took out the alarm clock, put it on a wooden stake, and said to himself, "It's 9 o'clock in the morning, so let's set the time at noon." Naruto asked with some doubts. Kakashi, Sensei, what are you doing? After setting the time of the alarm clock, Kakashi shook the bells in his hand, turned to Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura, and said, although the three of you have graduated from the ninja school, as long as you don't get my approval, you are not real my ninjas. Sakura hurriedly asked, then how can I get your approval? I have 2 bells in my hand. As long as you can grab them before the alarm clock rings, you will get my approval. After a pause, Kakashi pointed to 3 wooden stakes not far away and said in a creepy tone, those who haven't grabbed the bells after the alarm clock rings will be tied to the stake, and there will be no lunch. Sasuke curled his lips, tch, boring little tricks. Naruto rolled up his sleeves confidently. It's just grabbing the bells. It's a piece of cake for me. Unlike the indifferent Sasuke and the confident Naruto, Sakura weakly pointed to the 2 bells in Kakashi's hand and said, Kakashi-sensei, but you only have 2 bells in your hand. Naruto also said, yes, we have 3 people here, Kakashi-sensei. You didn't bring 1 bell. You are not serious. Kakashi sneered with a black face. There are only 2 bells. That is to say, at least one of you will be eliminated and returned to the ninja school. It is also possible that all of you will be eliminated and go back to school together. Suddenly, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura, Sensei, looked solemn. Kakashi then said, you can use ninja tools. If you don't have the determination to kill me, you won't be able to get the bells. Sasuke instantly activated the 3 Magatama Sharingan. Kakashi-sensei, are you serious? This place is not close to my hospital. Of course. With a smile, Kakashi tied the 2 bells to his waist and said, you can start now. Swish. As soon as Kakashi's voice fell, Sakura followed the strategy taught in the ninja school and hid her whereabouts. However, Naruto and Sasuke stood in place, as if they had no intention of hiding at all. Kakashi was a little surprised when he saw this. It was not surprising that the rash Naruto would choose to attack head-on, but Sasuke should not be so rash. Sakura, who was hiding in the grass, was also surprised when she saw that she was the only one who carried out the strategy. She thought to herself, why didn't Sasuke and Naruto hide? The opponent is the village's Naruto agent. He is qualified to be the strong Naruto. At this time, Sasuke twisted his neck and smiled. Kakashi-sensei, I have long wanted to seriously fight with you. Kakashi said calmly, Sasuke, you are not my opponent now. Is that so? With a smile, the 3 Magatama on Sasuke's Sharingan slowly rotated. How would I know if I don't try? Naruto also raised his hands at this time, preparing to make a seal while saying, Kakashi-sensei, we are very powerful. If we defeat you, the 3 of us can get your approval together and successfully become my ninjas. Kakashi looked at Naruto with approval. Naruto was not affected by only 2 bells at all. Not only did he not treat his teammates as competitors, but he even thought of a plan to advance and retreat together with his teammates. Sasuke did not waste any time and shouted directly, Naruto, do it! Swish. After saying that, Sasuke activated Thunder Release Stimulation Method and Teleportation Technique at the same time. With an incredible speed, he instantly appeared behind Kakashi and stabbed the kunai in his hand into Kakashi's body. This, Naruto, who was making a seal and preparing to use multiple shadow clone technique, was completely stunned. He did not expect Sasuke to kill Kakashi so quickly. Sakura, who was hiding in the grass, also opened her eyes wide and said to herself, Kakashi, Sensei is too. Bang. Before Sakura could finish her thoughts, Kakashi, who was stabbed by Sasuke, turned into a cloud of white smoke, and then a wooden stake fell from the white smoke and fell to the ground. Sasuke, who thought that he had succeeded, frowned and said, Substitution technique? Naruto looked around, looking for Kakashi's figure. Ah! Suddenly, Sakura's shrill scream came from the grass. Sakura! Naruto's heart tightened and rushed to the grass without thinking. Sasuke hurriedly shouted, Naruto, don't! Before Sasuke finished shouting, Naruto's figure disappeared into the grass. Therefore, Sasuke could only use his Sharingan to observe the movement in the grass. But for some reason, as soon as Naruto's front foot rushed into the grass returned to peace in an instant, and there was no sound of Naruto or Sakura anymore. Idiot! After cursing in his heart, Sasuke became vigilant. Kakashi was obviously using the weakest Sakura as bait to lure Naruto, who was concerned about his teammates, into the trap and prioritize getting rid of Naruto, who would be difficult to deal with once he used it. At this moment, the whole grass suddenly shook, and then Naruto, who was covered in dirt, rushed out of it and said in a hurry, "Sasuke, Sakura is missing." Sasuke was preparing to use his Sharingan to identify Naruto's identity while cursing. "You idiot! You can't even see such an obvious trap." Gotcha! At this time, the ground at Naruto's feet suddenly cracked, and Kakashi broke out of the ground. Swoosh! At this moment, a figure appeared in the training field. Seeing this, Naruto quickly waved and shouted, "Sensei Kuroto!" Sasuke and Sakura also bowed respectfully. Naruto-sama. The figure that suddenly appeared was not a bystander. It was Hyojin, who was wearing Naruto's Haori robe. Glancing at the two bells hanging on Kakashi's waist, Hyojin knew that Kakashi was playing the prank test that Naruto had used to snatch the bell. Back then, the three generations had used snatching the bell to prank Orochimaru, Jiraiya, and Tsunade. Then, Jiraiya had used this trick to prank Minato, and Minato had continued to prank Kakashi, Obsidian, and Lin. Well, now was Kakashi's turn. Revenge breeds revenge. When will it end? After cursing in his heart, Hyojin stepped forward to greet Kakashi and asked, "How did the three of them do?" "Not so good." After a pause, Kakashi said, "By the way, why are you here?" "The Chunin exam has been decided by the village, and your class will also participate." Hyojin informed Kakashi of the results of the meeting in Naruto's office just now. Naruto immediately became energetic when he heard this. "Sensei, what Chunin exam?" Sasuke and Sakura also looked at Hyojin expectantly. Hyojin deliberately said, "This Chunin exam is jointly organized by the 5 great ninja villages. The geniuses and elites from other villages will also participate. I have already recommended your class, but if you can't pass Sensei Kakashi's test, then this Chunin exam will have nothing to do with your class. Ninjas from other villages will also participate." After a pause, Sasuke asked eagerly, "What about Sound Village? Will Sound Village participate in this Chunin exam?" Hyojin replied, "Sound Village is also an ally of our Mai, so the village has already sent an invitation to them. As for whether they will send people to participate or not, it depends on their own will." Great! When Sasuke heard this, his fighting spirit suddenly rose. Although the 3-year agreement with Kimimaro from the Sound Village hasn't arrived yet, Sasuke firmly believes that he will definitely win against Kimimaro now. So he is looking forward to meeting this opponent who humiliated him in the Chunin exam. Hyojin smiled and then said to Kakashi, "You guys continue. I'll go see the other students." After saying that, Kuroto disappeared from the spot with a swish. Seeing that Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura were still immersed in the news of the Chunin exam, Kakashi said coldly, "Think about how to pass my test first. If you can't grab the bell, don't mention the Chunin exam. I'm afraid the 3 of you will have to prepare for the ninja school graduation exam again." Sasuke said coolly, "I'm the first in my class. How can I fall in this kind of place?" At night, under the moonlight, Naruto dragged his tired body back to Hyojin's home. Chapter 9:35. Millennium Kill. That is the ultimate meaning of taijutsu. In short, this kind of technique is not something you should know now. After answering Naruto's doubts, Hyojin smiled. Obviously, Naruto and Sasuke have grown to the level that Kakashi must take seriously, so Kakashi didn't make fun of Naruto like in the original world. Glancing at Naruto, who was in a miserable state, Hyojin continued. But even so, Kakashi didn't let Naruto pass easily. Is this revenge for 4 generations trying to steal the bell to test him? Well, it must be like this. Soon, Hyojin and Naruto cleaned up the food on the table. Chakra is a combination of spiritual power and physical strength. So a ninja who consumes a lot of chakra generally has a big appetite. Naruto is tired after a day, naturally needless to say, and Hyojin also refined a lot of chakra and stored it in the Yin seal, so both of their appetites are far beyond ordinary people. You held her chin with one hand and looked at Hyojin and Naruto with a smile. From time to time, she would advise them to be careful not to choke. After dinner, Hyojin, who was full, called Naruto to the study and said, "In the next Chunin exam, you will definitely meet a lot of geniuses from other villages. Are you confident?" Naruto said, "Don't worry, sensei. Our class will definitely pass." Hyojin smiled and immediately thought, at present, Naruto has mastered multiple Kage technique and Rasengan. Although in practical application and tactical development, he is still a bit rusty and immature, but his strength has far surpassed his Chunin exam in the original world. Coupled with the immortal technique, the upper limit of Naruto's current strength is actually very high. But at the same time, Naruto's lower limit is also very low once he encounters an experienced enemy. 1 or 2 small traps can easily subdue him, just like Kakashi during the day. If there are still a few years, Hyojin doesn't mind letting Naruto explore by himself, reap growth in actual combat and lessons. But now there's not so much time. If Obsidian didn't deliberately put up a smoke bomb last time, then the time left for Hyojin may only be a few months. Therefore, Hyojin must improve Naruto's strength as much as possible in the next month or 2, so that Naruto has a certain ability to protect himself against the capture of the Akatsuki organization. Seeing Hyojin was silent, Naruto asked, "Sensei, what are you thinking about?" Hyojin, who came back to his senses, directly pressed one hand on Naruto's forehead, and in an instant his consciousness invaded Naruto's spiritual world. Looking around, Hyojin frowned slightly. Naruto's spiritual world is like a huge sewer. There are dark passages everywhere. The ground is full of water stains, and there are very few light sources, which means that Hyojin's mood has been depressed for a long time.